Selene Vey stood before the glass window of Blackthorn Tower, gazing at the city below, blurred by the night rain. 5 years of building an empire. 5 years of anonymity, and all of it crumbled because of a single text message from her husband. "Meet me upstairs. I'm tired of hiding. Ivy." Tonight, the man she loved would learn a lesson. Never underestimate the woman he had just destroyed. Follow this story to the very end. Like and comment with the city you're watching from, so I know how far this story has progressed. Now, let me tell you about the night Selene Vey decided to burn the world down. The rain didn't start as a drizzle. It came down like the sky had split open and decided to drown everything underneath. Selene Vey stood at the floor-to-ceiling window on the 53rd floor of Blackthorn Tower, watching water streak down the glass in jagged lines that blurred the city below into nothing but smeared light and shadow. The storm had been building all evening, thick clouds rolling in from the east like they had somewhere important to be, and now it was here, violent and unforgiving. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. Pale skin, dark hair pulled into a twist that was coming undone at the edges. A cream-colored dress that Roman had picked out that morning because he said it made her look soft. She hated that word, soft, like she was something that could be shaped, molded, controlled. Behind her, the office hummed with the low buzz of expensive everything. Leather chairs that cost more than most people's cars. A desk made from reclaimed wood that some designer swore came from a burned-down cathedral in France. Abstract art on the walls that Roman bought because someone told him it was important, not because he actually liked it. The whole space reeked of wealth that was supposed to impress, but to Selene it just felt hollow. A stage set, a lie. She turned away from the window and looked at the phone sitting on the edge of the desk. Roman's phone. He'd left it there 20 minutes ago when he went downstairs to schmooze with investors who didn't need schmoozing. That was the thing about Roman Ashford. He never missed a chance to perform, to shake hands, to laugh too loud at jokes that weren't funny, to make people feel like they mattered when really, he was just counting their money in his head. The phone had buzzed twice while he was gone. 2 short vibrations that cut through the quiet like a heartbeat. Selene had ignored the first one, told herself it wasn't her business, that looking would make her the kind of woman she didn't want to be. Paranoid, desperate, weak. But the second buzz came, and something inside her cracked. She crossed the room in 4 steps, picked up the phone. The screen lit up, and there it was. "Meet me upstairs. I'm tired of hiding." Ivy. Selene read it once. Then again. Then a third time. Like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something that didn't feel like a knife sliding between her ribs. Ivy. 24 years old, blonde hair that always looked like she'd just come from a shampoo commercial. Legs that went on forever. The kind of girl who laughed at everything Roman said like he was the funniest man alive. Selene had met her a dozen times at company events, and every time Ivy had smiled at her with teeth so white they looked fake and said things like, "You're so lucky to be married to him," in a voice that dripped with something Selene couldn't quite name. Now she could name it. Poison. Selene's hand tightened around the phone. Her knuckles went white. She thought about throwing it, watching it shatter against the reclaimed cathedral wood. But she didn't. Because throwing things was what people did when they lost control, and Selene Vey had spent 5 years making sure she never lost control. She set the phone down carefully, smoothed her dress, took a breath that felt like swallowing glass. Then she walked out of the office. The hallway outside was empty. White walls, framed photos of Roman shaking hands with governors, celebrities, billionaires. Roman cutting ribbons, Roman giving speeches, Roman accepting awards. In every single photo, he was smiling like he'd just won something. Selene had taken most of those photos, stood behind the camera while he posed, adjusted the lighting, made sure his tie was straight. And later, when the press wrote articles about his genius, his vision, his unmatched business instinct, she sat in rooms by herself and wondered if anyone would ever know the truth. That every merger he'd ever closed, she'd structured. That every market trend he'd ever predicted, she'd analyzed first. That every billion-dollar expansion he'd ever celebrated, she'd built from the ground up while he slept. The elevator at the end of the hall stood open, waiting. Selene stepped inside and pressed the button for the 55th floor. The doors slid shut, and the world disappeared into smooth motion and the faint hum of machinery. She didn't know what she was going to do when she got upstairs. Didn't have a plan. Didn't have words prepared. She just knew she had to see it, had to confirm what her gut had been screaming at her for months. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. The 55th floor was quieter than the rest of the building, dimmer. It was supposed to be storage space, but Roman had converted part of it into a private lounge a year ago. He said it was for clients who needed discretion. Selene had believed him because, back then, she still believed most of what he said. She moved down the hallway, past empty conference rooms and locked doors, until she reached the lounge at the far end. The door was cracked open. Light spilled out into the hall, warm and golden. Selene stopped just outside, listened. Voices, low and soft. A man's laugh, a woman's giggle. She pushed the door open. Roman was sitting on the leather couch with his back to her, one arm stretched across the cushions. Ivy was next to him, leaning into his chest, her blonde hair spilling over his shoulder. They were drinking wine, expensive wine, the kind Selene had picked out for their anniversary last year. Roman said something Selene couldn't hear, and Ivy laughed again, tilting her head back like she was in a movie. Then Roman turned his head, and he saw her. For a second, he just stared, like his brain couldn't process what his eyes were showing him. Then his face changed, went from relaxed to panicked in half a heartbeat. Selene. She didn't let him finish, didn't let him start spinning the lie she knew was already forming in his mouth. She just looked at him, then at Ivy, then back at him. 5 years, Selene said. Her voice came out flat. Dead. 5 years, Roman. He stood up fast, almost knocking the wine bottle off the table. This isn't. Don't. The word cut through the air like a blade. Roman froze. Ivy was staring at Selene now, her eyes wide, her mouth half open like she wanted to say something but couldn't figure out what. She looked young, stupid, guilty. Selene felt nothing. That was the worst part. She'd expected rage. Tears. Something hot and sharp that would make her feel alive. But there was nothing. Just a cold, hollow space where her heart used to be. I built this, Selene said quietly. All of it. Every deal. Every strategy. Every fucking dollar that goes through this company. And you let the world think it was you. Roman opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. You're upset. I get it, but this isn't. I'm not upset, Selene said. I'm done. She turned and walked out before he could say another word. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up. Selene stood in the center of the car, staring at her reflection in the polished steel doors. Her face looked strange, like it belonged to someone else, someone she used to know a long time ago. When the doors opened on the 53rd floor, she walked straight to the office, grabbed her coat and her bag, and left. Didn't look back. Didn't stop to think. Just walked. The rain hit her the second she stepped outside. Cold and brutal, soaking through her coat in seconds. She didn't care. She kept walking, down the street, past cars and people huddled under umbrellas, past storefronts glowing in the dark. She didn't know where she was going until she got there. A phone booth. Old-fashioned. The kind nobody used anymore because everyone had cell phones. But it was there, on the corner of 5th and Lexington, lit up like a shrine. Selene stepped inside, closed the door. The rain hammered against the glass, muffling the world outside. She pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking, not from the cold, from something else, something bigger. She scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she was looking for. Lucien Vale. She'd met him once. 2 years ago, at a charity gala Roman had dragged her to. Lucien had been standing by the bar, alone, watching the room like a predator watches prey. When Selene walked past, he'd stopped her. Not with words, just a look. And then he'd said, "You don't belong here." She'd asked what he meant. He'd smiled. "You're too smart for this room." They'd talked for 10 minutes, maybe 15, about markets, about power, about the difference between people who take what they want and people who wait for permission. And when the conversation ended, Lucien had handed her his card and said, "If you ever get tired of being invisible, call me." Selene had never called. Until now. She pressed the number, held the phone to her ear. It rang once, twice, then a voice, low, smooth, dangerous. I was wondering when you'd call. Selene closed her eyes, took a breath. I need your help. I know. I want to destroy him. There was a pause. Then Lucien laughed. Soft, almost affectionate. Good. I was hoping you'd say that. Can you do it? Selene, Lucien said, and his voice changed. Got quieter, sharper. I can do more than destroy him. I can make sure he understands exactly what he lost. But you need to be sure, because once we start, there's no going back. Selene opened her eyes, looked out at the rain, at the city glowing and bleeding in the storm. I'm sure. Then meet me tomorrow, Pier 17, 8 a.m. Don't bring anything. Don't tell anyone. Just come. Okay. And Selene? Yeah? Welcome to the rest of your life. The line went dead. Selene stood in the phone booth for another minute, listening to the rain. Then she stepped out into the storm and started walking again. She didn't go home. Instead, she walked to a hotel 3 blocks away, checked in under a fake name, paid cash, went upstairs to a room that smelled like bleach and old carpet. She took off her coat, sat on the edge of the bed, stared at the wall. And for the first time in 5 years, Selene Vey let herself cry. Not because she was sad, but because she was finally, brutally free. Volkat. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the sky was still gray. Heavy, like it was holding its breath. Selene stood at the edge of Pier 17, watching the water churn against the docks. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Roman's face, heard Ivy's laugh, felt the weight of 5 years collapsing into nothing. But she didn't feel weak. She felt sharp. At exactly 8 a.m., a black car pulled up behind her. The door opened and Lucien Vale stepped out. He looked the same as she remembered. Tall, dark hair slicked back, a suit that probably cost more than most people made in a year. But it wasn't the money that made him intimidating. It was the way he moved, like he owned every space he walked into. You came, he said. You thought I wouldn't? Lucien smiled. I hoped you would, but people surprised me. He gestured toward the car. Get in. We need to talk somewhere private. Selene hesitated for half a second. Then she walked past him and climbed into the back seat. The interior smelled like leather and something else. Something expensive she couldn't name. Lucien slid in next to her and the driver pulled away from the curb without a word. Where are we going? Selene asked. My office. Where's that? Lucien looked at her. His eyes were dark, unreadable. Everywhere. They drove through the city in silence, past buildings Selene recognized, past streets she'd walked 1,000 times. Everything looked different in the gray morning light. Colder. Harder. Finally, the car stopped in front of a glass tower near the financial district. Not as tall as Blackthorn, but sleeker. Sharper. Lucien led her inside, through a lobby that was all black marble and chrome, into an elevator that moved so smoothly it felt like floating. They went up, higher than Selene expected, until the doors opened on the top floor. The office was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows on 3 sides, a view that stretched across the entire city. Minimalist furniture, nothing unnecessary, nothing wasted. Sit, Lucien said, gesturing to a chair near the window. Selene sat. Lucien poured 2 glasses of water from a crystal pitcher and handed her one. Then he sat across from her, leaning back like he had all the time in the world. Tell me what you want, he said. Selene took a sip of water, set the glass down. I want Roman to lose everything. Be specific. I want the world to know he's a fraud, that he stole my work, that everything he built was mine. Lucien nodded slowly. That's a start, but it's not enough. What do you mean? Destroying his reputation is easy. I can do that in a week. But if you want real revenge, you need to take more than his image. You need to take his power, his money, his future. Selene stared at him. Can you do that? Lucien smiled. I've done worse to better men. Why would you help me? Because I don't like men like Roman Ashford. Men who take credit for work they didn't do. Men who think they can erase people just because they're inconvenient. He leaned forward. And because I think you're going to be very useful to me. Useful how? You're brilliant, Selene. Everyone who's ever worked with you knows it. But you've spent 5 years hiding that brilliance so your husband could shine. Now I'm offering you a chance to step into the light. With my backing, you can become more powerful than Roman ever was. Selene felt something shift inside her chest. Not hope, something sharper. What do you get out of it? A partner, Lucian said simply. Someone who understands how the game is really played. Someone who isn't afraid to get their hands dirty. I've never gotten my hands dirty. Then it's time you learned. Selene looked out at the city, at the buildings stabbing into the gray sky, at the people moving like ants far below. How do we start? She asked. Lucian's smile widened. We start by making Roman think he's safe. Then we pull the rug out from under him so hard he doesn't know which way is up. He stood and walked to the window. First, we need to gather proof. Every contract you wrote, every strategy you created, every piece of intellectual property that has your fingerprints on it. We document everything, build a case so airtight, even his lawyers won't be able to lie their way out. And then we go public, but not quietly. We make it an event, something people can't ignore. How? Lucien turned to face her. The Ashford Global Gala. 3 months from now. 400 of the most powerful people in the country all in one room. Roman's biggest night of the year. That's when we burn him. Selene felt her pulse quicken. That's risky. Everything worth doing is risky. What if it doesn't work? It will work, Lucian said, because I don't fail. And neither do you. Selene stood, walked to the window, stood next to him. What do I have to do? For now, nothing. Go home. Act normal. Let Roman think you're hurt but forgiving. Let him believe he still has control. Lucian's voice dropped. And while he's distracted, we'll start dismantling everything he's ever built. Selene looked at him. Why are you really doing this? Lucian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because I know what it's like to be erased, and I know what it takes to come back. Something passed between them, an understanding, a recognition. Selene nodded. Okay, let's do it. Lucien extended his hand. Partners? Selene shook it. Partners. Mogged. Over the next 2 weeks, Selene became someone she didn't recognize. During the day, she played the role of the wounded wife. She went home. Let Roman apologize. Let him buy her flowers and jewelry and promises that meant nothing. Let him think she was considering forgiveness. At night, she met with Lucien. They worked in his office, surrounded by documents and contracts and files that painted a picture so damning it made Selene's stomach turn. She'd known Roman took credit for her work, but she hadn't realized how deep it went. How many deals? How many strategies? How many billions of dollars built on ideas that came from her brain while Roman slept? He didn't just steal from you, Lucien said one night, spreading financial records across the table. He erased you, systematically. Every document, every meeting, every pitch. He made sure your name never appeared. Selene stared at the papers, felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Why didn't I see it? Because you loved him, Lucian said. And love makes people stupid. That's cynical. That's true. Selene looked at him. Do you believe in love? Lucien leaned back in his chair. I believe in power. Love is just a version of it. A dangerous version. Have you ever been in love? Once. His face didn't change. She died. I'm sorry. Don't be. It taught me not to trust anyone. You're trusting me. Lucian smiled. No, I'm not. I'm using you. There's a difference. Selene should have been offended. But she wasn't, because at least Lucien was honest. At least he didn't pretend to be something he wasn't. Good, she said. Because I'm using you too. Lucien laughed. Actually, laughed. I like you, Selene. You're not soft. I used to be. What changed? Roman fucked his assistant in the office I built for him. Lucian raised his glass. To Roman Ashford, the dumbest smart man I've ever met. They worked until 3 a.m, building the case, mapping the strategy, planning every move like they were playing chess against someone who didn't know the game had started. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Selene realized something terrifying. She liked this, liked the planning, the control, the feeling of knowing she was 3 steps ahead of everyone else. For 5 years, she'd convinced herself that hiding was noble, that letting Roman shine was love. But it wasn't love. It was fear. Fear of being too much, too smart, too powerful. Now she was done being afraid. 3 weeks after that night on Pier 17, Lucien called Selene into his office for a meeting. "We have a problem," he said. Selene sat down. "What kind of problem?" "Roman knows something's wrong. He's been asking questions, digging into finances, checking contracts." "Does he know about us?" "Not yet, but he's getting suspicious." Selene's stomach dropped. "What do we do?" Lucien was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "We accelerate the timeline, move the plan up." "To when?" 2 weeks. "The Ashford Global Gala." "That's too soon. We're not ready." "We don't have a choice." Lucien leaned forward. "If Roman figures out what we're doing before we go public, he'll bury the evidence. He'll rewrite contracts. He'll make it impossible to prove anything." Selene felt panic rising in her chest. "Can we do it in 2 weeks?" "Yes, but it's going to take everything we have. No mistakes. No hesitation." "What about proof?" "We need more documents." "We have enough. I've been building a secondary case through my contacts. Former employees, whistleblowers, people Roman screwed over years ago. They're all ready to testify." "What if they back out?" "They won't. I made sure of it." Selene didn't ask how, didn't want to know. "Okay," she said. 2 weeks. Lucien stood, walked around the desk, stood in front of her. "Selene, once we do this, there's no going back. Roman will come after you. The media will tear you apart. You'll lose friends, family. People will call you vindictive, bitter, a scorned woman. I don't care. Yes, you do. But you need to decide if you care more about what people think or about getting your life back." Selene looked up at him. "I've spent 5 years caring what people think. I'm done." Lucien smiled. "Then let's burn him." The night of the Ashford Global Gala arrived like a storm that had been building for months. Selene stood in front of the mirror in her hotel room, staring at herself. She'd bought a new dress for tonight. Black. Simple. Elegant. The kind of dress that didn't ask for attention. It demanded it. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lucien. "Car's downstairs, you ready?" Selene took a breath. Typed back. "Yes." She grabbed her purse, walked out of the room, took the elevator down to the lobby. Lucien was waiting by the entrance, leaning against the black car like he didn't have a care in the world. He looked at her and smiled. "You look dangerous," he said. "Good." They got in the car, drove through the city in silence. Selene's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "You okay?" Lucien asked. "No." "Good. If you weren't nervous, I'd be worried." "What if this doesn't work?" "It'll work." "How do you know?" Lucien looked at her. "Because you're not the kind of person who fails. You're the kind who burns the world down to prove a point." Selene didn't know if that was a compliment or a warning. The car stopped in front of the Grand Belmont Hotel. Red carpet, lights, photographers everywhere. Selene could see people streaming inside in tuxedos and gowns that cost more than most people's rent. "Last chance to back out," Lucien said. Selene opened the door. "Let's go." They stepped out onto the red carpet and the world exploded. Cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters shouted questions. People stopped and stared because Lucien Vale didn't go to events like this. Ever. And the fact that he was here, with a woman on his arm, was news. Selene kept her face neutral. Let Lucien guide her through the chaos. Let the cameras capture every angle. Inside the ballroom was a cathedral of wealth. Crystal chandeliers, gold trim, tables covered in silk and flowers. 400 people in designer clothes drinking champagne that cost more per bottle than Selene used to make in a week. And at the center of it all, on a raised platform, stood Roman Ashford. He was giving a speech, smiling, confident, talking about vision and innovation and leadership, all the words he'd stolen from Selene over the years. Then he saw her. His smile faltered, just for a second. But Selene saw it. She didn't smile back. Lucien leaned close. "You want to sit or stand?" "Stand," Selene said. "I want him to see me." They moved to the side of the room, close enough to be visible, far enough to stay out of the way. Roman finished his speech to polite applause. Then the music started. People began to mingle. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres that looked like tiny works of art. Selene watched Roman work the room, shaking hands, laughing, playing the role he'd perfected over years. "He has no idea what's coming," Lucien said quietly. "When does it start?" 20 minutes, during the awards ceremony." Selene nodded, took a sip of champagne. It tasted like nothing. Time moved slowly. Then all at once, a man in a tuxedo stepped onto the stage, tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please take your seats." People drifted toward the tables. Selene and Lucien stayed where they were. The man on stage smiled. "Tonight, we celebrate another incredible year for Ashford Global. But before we begin the awards, we have a special presentation." The lights dimmed. The screens around the room flickered to life. And then it started. Documents, emails, contracts, financial records. All of it showing one thing, that Roman Ashford had built his empire on stolen work. The room went silent, deadly silent. On the screen, a contract appeared, signed by Selene, detailing a merger strategy worth $3 billion. Below it, another document. The same strategy. Word for word. Presented to investors under Roman's name. Then another, and another. Years of proof, laid out in brutal, undeniable detail. Roman stood frozen at his table. His face had gone white. People started murmuring, whispers spreading like fire. Then a man stepped onto the stage. Tall, gray hair, expensive suit. Selene recognized him. Marcus Brennan, one of the most feared attorneys in the country. "Good evening," Marcus said. His voice was calm, professional. "My name is Marcus Brennan, and I represent Selene Vey. What you're seeing on these screens is evidence of systematic intellectual property theft spanning 5 years. Every strategy, every merger, every market prediction credited to Roman Ashford was created by his wife, Selene, and presented as his own work without her consent or acknowledgement." The murmurs got louder, turned into conversations, arguments. Roman stood. This is ridiculous. Marcus didn't stop. "We have testimony from former employees, whistleblowers, financial experts, all confirming that Selene Vey was the architect behind Ashford Global's success. And tonight, we're making this information public." Roman's voice cracked. "You can't. This is defamation." "It's truth," Marcus said, "and the truth doesn't care about your reputation." The room erupted, people shouting, cameras flashing, investors standing, board members arguing. Selene watched it all with something that felt like vertigo, like she was standing on the edge of a cliff watching the world collapse. Then Roman's eyes found hers across the room, and for the first time in 5 years, he looked at her and saw exactly who she was. Not his wife, his enemy. The ballroom didn't just erupt, it detonated. Roman Ashford stood at his table, hands gripping the edge like it was the only thing keeping him upright. His face had gone from white to red, veins bulging at his temples. Around him, investors were on their feet, some shouting, some frantically typing into their phones. Board members huddled in tight circles, their faces twisted with panic and rage. Waiters froze mid-step, holding trays of champagne no one cared about anymore. Selene stood at the edge of the room next to Lucien, watching it all unfold like she was observing a car crash in slow motion. Her heart was hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat, but her face stayed calm, blank. She'd practiced this, rehearsed it in mirrors for weeks. No matter what happened, she wouldn't let them see her break. "Selene," Roman's voice cut through the chaos like a gunshot. He was moving toward her now, shoving past people who tried to stop him, his eyes locked on hers with something that looked like pure hatred. Lucien stepped forward, positioning himself between them. "I'd stop right there if I were you." Roman didn't stop. He got close enough that Selene could smell the scotch on his breath, see the sweat beading on his forehead. "You vindictive bitch, you actually did this." "Yeah," Selene said. Her voice came out steady, cold. "I did." "Do you have any idea what you've done? You've destroyed everything. Everything we built." "Everything I built," Selene corrected. "You just put your name on it." Roman's hand shot out like he was going to grab her, but Lucien caught his wrist mid-air, twisted it just enough to make Roman wince. "Touch her, and I'll break every bone in your hand," Lucien said quietly. Security was moving through the crowd now, 3 men in black suits heading straight for them. Roman jerked his arm free, breathing hard, his chest heaving. "This isn't over. You think you can humiliate me in front of everyone I know and just walk away?" "That's exactly what I think," Selene said. "I'll sue you. I'll bury you in legal fees until you're bankrupt. I'll make sure you never work in this city again." "Good luck with that," Lucien said, "considering you're about to be too busy defending yourself against fraud charges." Roman's eyes snapped to Lucien. "What?" "Federal investigators," Lucien said, gesturing toward the entrance. "They've been waiting outside for the last 20 minutes. I thought it would be rude to interrupt your gala before the main event." Selene followed his gaze. Sure enough, 3 people in plain clothes were making their way through the crowd, badges clipped to their belts. One of them, a woman with short gray hair and a face like granite, was scanning the room until her eyes landed on Roman. Roman saw them too. His face went pale again. No, you didn't." "Securities fraud," Lucien said, "falsifying investor documents, misappropriation of intellectual property. Should I keep going?" The lead investigator reached their group. "Roman Ashford?" Roman turned to face her, his jaw tight. "Who's asking?" "Special Agent Linda Ortega, Securities and Exchange Commission." She held up her badge. "We need you to come with us for questioning." "I'm not going anywhere. This is my event." "Mr. Ashford, you can cooperate now, or we can make this much more public than it already is. Your choice." The entire ballroom had gone silent, 400 people watching, phones out, cameras recording. This was going to be on every news site within the hour. Roman looked at Selene one more time, and the look on his face wasn't anger anymore. It was something worse, betrayal. Like he genuinely couldn't understand how the woman he'd controlled for 5 years had just destroyed him. "I loved you," he said. Selene felt something crack inside her chest, but she didn't let it show. "No, you didn't. You loved what I could do for you. There's a difference." Agent Ortega touched Roman's arm. "Sir, we need to go." Roman let them lead him away. Through the crowd, past investors who stepped back like he was contagious, past board members who wouldn't meet his eyes, out through the double doors and into the night. The second he was gone, the room exploded again, conversations everywhere. People pointing at Selene, some looked horrified, some looked impressed, most just looked confused. Marcus Brennan appeared at Selene's side. "That went better than expected." "Better?" Selene's voice cracked. "That was a nightmare." "No," Marcus said calmly. "That was justice, and justice is always messy." Lucien put a hand on Selene's shoulder. "We need to leave. Now, before the press gets hold of you." Selene nodded. Her legs felt shaky, like they might give out any second. Lucien guided her toward a side exit, away from the cameras and the staring faces and the whispers that followed her like smoke. They made it outside into the cold night air. The black car was already waiting, engine running. Selene climbed in, and Lucien slid in beside her. The door shut, muffling the noise from inside the hotel. The driver pulled away from the curb, smooth and fast. Selene stared out the window, watching the city blur past. Her hands were shaking now. She pressed them together, hard, trying to make it stop. "You okay?" Lucien asked. "I don't know." "That's normal." "I just destroyed my husband in front of 400 people." "Ex-husband," Lucien corrected. "Divorce papers will be filed tomorrow morning." Selene turned to look at him. "You already have them ready?" "I've had them ready for 3 weeks. I don't leave things to chance." "You think of everything." "That's why I'm still alive." Selene laughed. It came out broken, unhinged. She pressed her hands to her face, trying to breathe. "What happens now?" "Now the real work starts. Roman's going to fight back, hard. He'll hire the best lawyers. He'll spin this as a personal vendetta. He'll paint you as bitter and unstable." "I know." "Can you handle that?" Selene dropped her hands, looked at Lucien. "I don't have a choice, do I?" "No, you don't." The car pulled up in front of Lucien's building. They rode the elevator in silence, up to the top floor, into the office that overlooked the city. Lucien poured 2 glasses of scotch, handed one to Selene. "Drink." She did. It burned going down, sharp and hot. You need to prepare yourself, Lucien said. Tomorrow, every media outlet in the country is going to be talking about you. They'll dig into your past, your family, your friends. They'll find people who hate you and give them a platform. They'll make you the villain because that's a better story than the truth. So what do I do? You don't hide. You don't apologize. You stand in front of them and own it. Every single decision you made, every move. You make them understand that you're not ashamed. I'm not ashamed, Selene said. Good, because the second you show weakness, they'll tear you apart. Selene finished the scotch, set the glass down. When do the interviews start? Day after tomorrow. I've already arranged them. 3 major outlets. You tell your story. On your terms. What if I mess up? You won't. How do you know? Lucien smiled. Because you're not the kind of woman who messes up. You're the kind who burns everything down and walks out without looking back. Selene wanted to believe him, but sitting there in the dark office with the city glowing below, she didn't feel strong. She felt hollowed out, like someone had reached inside her and scooped out everything that used to matter. Can I ask you something? She said. Go ahead. Why are you really helping me? Lucien was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Because I see myself in you. What does that mean? It means I know what it's like to be erased by someone you trusted, to build something and watch someone else take credit, to lose everything because you were stupid enough to love the wrong person. He paused. And I know what it takes to come back from that, to rebuild yourself into something they can't ignore. Did you come back? Look around, Lucien said, gesturing at the office. What do you think? Selene looked at the expensive furniture, the view, the power that radiated from every corner. I think you did. Then you know it's possible. Selene stood, walked to the window, pressed her palm against the cold glass. What if I don't want to be like you? Then don't. Be better. I don't know how. Yes, you do, Lucien said. You already are. But the next morning, Selene woke up in a guest room in Lucien's building. She hadn't wanted to go back to the house she'd shared with Roman. Couldn't stomach the idea of sleeping in the bed they'd bought together, surrounded by furniture they'd picked out when she still believed in them. Her phone was vibrating on the nightstand. She picked it up. 73 missed calls, hundreds of texts, most from numbers she didn't recognize. She scrolled through the messages. Some were supportive, most weren't. You're a disgrace, gold-digging whore. Hope you're happy ruining a good man's life. Selene deleted them without reading the rest. Turned off her phone. Got dressed. Lucien was in the kitchen when she came out, drinking coffee and reading something on his tablet. He looked up. Sleep? No. Figured. He pushed a mug across the counter. Drink this. Selene took it. Black coffee. Strong. What's the damage? Every major news outlet has picked up the story. Stock for Ashford Global is down 38%. Board members are calling for emergency meetings. Investors are pulling out. Roman's lawyer released a statement calling the allegations baseless and defamatory. That was fast? He's scared, and scared men make mistakes. Selene's phone buzzed on the counter. She'd turned it back on out of habit. Lucien glanced at it. You might want to see this. She picked it up. A text from a number she didn't recognize. We need to talk. Ivy. Selene stared at it, felt something cold settle in her stomach. Why would she contact me? Probably trying to save herself, Lucien said. Roman's going down, and she knows it. She's looking for an exit. Should I meet her? That depends. Do you want to hear what she has to say? Selene thought about it. About the girl who'd laughed on Roman's couch, who'd drunk the wine Selene had picked out, who'd helped destroy 5 years of her life. Yeah, she said. I do. Was. They met at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. Neutral territory. Public enough that nothing bad could happen. Private enough to talk. Ivy was already there when Selene arrived, sitting at a corner table, wearing jeans and a hoodie that made her look even younger than she was. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup, red eyes. She looked up when Selene approached, stood halfway, like she wasn't sure if she should. Thanks for coming. Selene sat down across from her. Didn't say anything. Ivy sat back down, wrapped her hands around a coffee cup that looked like it had gone cold. I don't really know how to start. Then don't, Selene said. Just talk. Ivy took a breath, let it out shaky. I'm sorry for everything, for the affair, for being stupid, for... Stop! Ivy stopped. I didn't come here for an apology, Selene said. You can't apologize for what you did. It doesn't work like that. Then why did you come? Because I want to understand. Why did you do it? Ivy's face crumpled. He told me you didn't love him anymore, that you were cold, that the marriage was over and he was just waiting for the right time to leave. Selene felt something hot flare in her chest. And you believed him. I was 24 years old. I'd been working for him for 6 months. He was charming and powerful, and he paid attention to me. Ivy's voice cracked. I know how pathetic that sounds. I know I should have known better, but I didn't. You slept with my husband. I know. In the office I designed, drinking the wine I picked out. I know. Ivy was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I know, and I hate myself for it, but I swear to you, I didn't know how bad it was. I didn't know about the work you did, about how he stole everything from you. I thought he was just a successful businessman who happened to have a wife who wasn't interested anymore. Selene watched her cry, felt nothing, just cold, empty distance. Why are you telling me this now? She asked. Ivy wiped her face with the back of her hand. Because Roman called me last night, after the gala, and he told me to lie. To say you made everything up, that you were jealous and unstable and trying to destroy him. Are you going to? No. Ivy looked up, met Selene's eyes. I'm going to tell the truth. About the affair. About the things he said. About how he manipulated me. She paused. I know it doesn't fix anything. I know you have every right to hate me, but I'm not going to help him anymore. Selene leaned back, studied the girl across from her. Young, stupid, used, just like she'd been. You're going to testify? Selene asked. If you need me to, yeah. It's going to destroy your career, your reputation, everything. I know. Ivy's voice was quiet but steady, but it's the right thing to do. Selene stood, picked up her bag. I'll have my lawyer contact you. Ivy nodded. Okay. Selene started to walk away, then stopped, turned back. Ivy? Yeah? He lied to you too. You know that, right? The things he said about me, about our marriage. It was all bullshit. Ivy's face crumpled again. I know. Good. Don't forget it. Selene walked out of the coffee shop and into the cold morning. Lucienne was waiting in the car half a block away. She climbed in. How'd it go? He asked. She's going to testify. That's good. Is it? Selene looked at him. She's 24 years old. Her life is going to be ruined. She made her choices. So did I, and look where it got me. Lucian didn't answer, just told the driver to go. The interview started 2 days later. First was a morning news program. Bright lights, uncomfortable chairs, a host with perfect hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Selene Vey, thank you for joining us, the host said. Thank you for having me. Let's get right to it. You've accused your husband, Roman Ashford, of stealing your intellectual property and building his empire on your work. That's a serious allegation. It's not an allegation, Selene said. It's fact, and I have documentation to prove it. Some people are saying this is just a bitter ex-wife trying to get revenge. Selene looked directly at the camera. Some people can think whatever they want, but the contracts don't lie. The financial records don't lie. The testimony from former employees doesn't lie. Roman Ashford built Ashford Global using strategies and ideas I created. He presented them as his own. He erased my name from every document, and when I found out he was having an affair, I decided I was done being invisible. The host leaned forward. So you admit this is partly about the affair? No. This is about theft. The affair just made me realize how little he valued me. Do you regret going public the way you did? At his gala? In front of all those people? Not for a second. The interview aired that afternoon. Within an hour, it had been viewed 3 million times online. Comments flooded in. Some called her brave. Some called her a bitch. Some called her both. Selene did 2 more interviews that week, each one harder than the last, each one picking apart her life, her marriage, her decisions. But she didn't break. She answered every question, defended every choice, refused to apologize for existing. And slowly, the narrative started to shift. Op-eds appeared in major publications, think pieces about women in business, discussions about intellectual property theft, profiles of other female executives who'd been erased by male partners. Selene became the face of something bigger than herself, and she hated it. 3 weeks after this gala, Lucien called Selene into his office. "We have a problem," he said. Selene's stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "Roman's lawyers found something." "What?" Lucien pulled up a document on his computer, turned the screen so Selene could see. "A contract you signed 5 years ago when you married Roman." Selene scanned the document. Her chest got tight. "A postnuptial agreement." "Yeah." "And buried in the fine print is a clause that says any intellectual property you create during the marriage automatically transfers to Roman as the primary shareholder of Ashford Global." "That's not... I don't remember signing this." "You did, right here." Lucien pointed to a signature at the bottom. Selene's signature. "Roman's lawyers are using it to claim that even if you created the strategies, he legally owns them." Selene felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "So everything we did, the gala, the interviews, the evidence, it doesn't matter?" "Not exactly. The contract is legally questionable. It was signed under unclear circumstances, and the fact that you weren't represented by independent counsel makes it vulnerable. But Roman's team is going to argue it's valid, which means this is going to trial." "How long?" "Months, maybe a year?" Selene sat down hard, put her head in her hands. "I can't do this for a year." "You don't have a choice." "There's always a choice." "Not anymore," Lucien said. "You started this. You went public. You made yourself the face of this fight. If you back down now, you lose everything, and Roman wins." Selene looked up at him. "What if I'm tired of fighting?" "Then you lose." "That's it? That's your advice?" "That's reality," Lucien said. "You wanted to destroy him. Well, destruction is expensive, and it takes time. So you can either dig in and see this through, or you can walk away and spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd been strong enough to finish." Selene hated him in that moment, hated his cold logic, his refusal to let her have even a second of weakness. But he was right. "Fine," she said. "We go to trial." "Good, because I already told Marcus to file the response." Of course he had. The next 2 months were a blur of depositions, legal meetings, and media appearances. Selene's face was everywhere. Magazine covers, news sites, talk shows. She became a symbol whether she wanted to be or not. Roman fought back hard. His PR team launched a campaign painting Selene as manipulative, unstable, a woman scorned who couldn't accept that her husband had moved on. Former business associates came forward with stories about Selene being difficult to work with, controlling, emotional. Selene watched it all from Lucien's office, feeling like she was drowning. "They're making me look insane," she said one night. "They're trying to," Lucien corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there? Because everywhere I look, people are calling me a liar." "Some people are, but more people believe you. The polls, I don't care about the polls." Selene stood up, pacing. "I care about the truth, and the truth is being buried under spin and lies, and then we dig it back up," Lucien interrupted. "That's what trials are for." "What if we lose?" "We won't." "You don't know that." "I do. Because I've seen the evidence. I've talked to the witnesses, and I know that when Marcus Brennan walks into that courtroom, he's going to tear Roman apart piece by piece until there's nothing left." Selene wanted to believe him, but belief felt like a luxury she couldn't afford anymore. 6 weeks before the trial was set to begin, something happened that changed everything. Selene was in Lucien's office reviewing documents when her phone rang. Unknown number, she almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Selene Vey?" A woman's voice, older, shaky. "Yes? My name is Margaret Ashford. I'm Roman's mother." Selene's blood went cold. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter. I need to speak with you, in person. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, Margaret's voice cracked. I know what my son did, and I know what you're trying to do. But there are things you don't understand, things about Roman, about his father, about how this all started. I don't care about his excuses. It's not an excuse, it's context. And if you want to really destroy him, you need to hear it. Selene looked at Lucian. He was watching her, eyebrows raised. She mouthed, Roman's mother. Lucian made a slicing motion across his throat. Hang up. Selene ignored him. Where do you want to meet? Mkits. Margaret Ashford lived in a brownstone in the Upper East Side. Old money. The kind of place that smelled like furniture polish and regret. Selene went alone. Lucian had argued against it, but she'd insisted. This was something she needed to do by herself. Margaret answered the door. She was in her 70s, white hair pulled back, wearing a cardigan that had seen better days. She looked tired, sad. Come in, she said. Selene followed her inside. The house was exactly what she expected. Dark wood, expensive art, photos of Roman as a child on every surface. They sat in the living room. Margaret poured tea that Selene didn't drink. Thank you for coming, Margaret said. Why did you call me? Margaret set down her teacup, folded her hands in her lap. Because I need you to understand that my son is a liar, and he learned it from his father. Selene waited. Roman's father, Charles, was a brilliant man, Margaret continued, but he was also a thief. He built his first company using ideas he stole from a partner. When the partner found out and threatened to go public, Charles buried him, destroyed his reputation, made sure no one would ever believe him. What happened to the partner? He killed himself. Margaret's voice was flat. 3 months after Charles ruined him, and Charles never showed an ounce of remorse. Selene felt something twist in her stomach. Why are you telling me this? Because Roman watched his father do it. Watched him lie and steal and destroy people without consequence. And he learned that that's how you succeed. That taking credit for other people's work isn't wrong. It's smart. That doesn't excuse what he did to me. I know. Margaret looked at her with eyes that were too sad to be anything but sincere. But I wanted you to know that when you destroy my son, you'll also be destroying his father's legacy. And Charles Ashford deserves to be destroyed. You want me to go after him too? Charles has been dead for 10 years, but his companies are still running, still using the model he created, still stealing from people who don't have the power to fight back. Margaret leaned forward. I'm giving you access to everything. All of Charles's old files, his documents, his correspondence, proof of every theft, every lie, every person he ruined. Why? Because I spent 40 years married to a monster, and I raised a son who became just like him, and I'm tired of pretending it's okay. Selene stared at her, at this woman who'd lived a life Selene could barely imagine, who'd watched her husband destroy people and done nothing. What do you want in return? Selene asked. Nothing, Margaret said. I just want the truth to matter. For once. Selene left the brownstone 2 hours later with a thumb drive containing 30 years of documents. When she got back to Lucien's office and showed him what she had, his eyes went wide. This is a nuclear bomb, he said. I know. If we use this, we're not just taking down Roman, we're taking down an entire business dynasty. Good. Lucian looked at her, really looked at her. Are you sure you want to do this? Because once we start, there's no going back. This becomes bigger than revenge. It becomes a crusade. Selene thought about Margaret's sad eyes, about the partner who'd killed himself, about all the people Charles and Roman had destroyed over the years. I'm sure, she said. Lucian smiled, slow and dangerous. Then let's burn it all down. The trial date arrived like an executioner's appointment. Selene sat in the courtroom next to Marcus Brennan, watching people file in. Reporters, sketch artists, spectators who'd lined up for hours to get a seat. Roman sat across the aisle with his lawyers. He looked thinner than she remembered, older, like the last 3 months had aged him a decade. He didn't look at her. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Be seated, the judge said. We're here for the matter of Vey versus Ashford. Are both parties ready to proceed? Yes, Your Honor, Marcus said. Yes, Your Honor, Roman's lead attorney echoed. Then let's begin. The The trial lasted 4 weeks. 4 weeks of testimony, evidence, witnesses who told stories of stolen work and buried credit, former employees who'd watched Roman take Selene's ideas and present them as his own. Ivy testified, cried on the stand, admitted to the affair, confirmed that Roman had asked her to lie. Experts testified about intellectual property law, about the post-nuptial agreement, about whether it was enforceable. And then, in week 3, Marcus dropped the bomb. He introduced Charles Ashford's documents into evidence. The courtroom went silent as Marcus laid out decades of theft, of destroyed lives, of a business model built on stealing from people who couldn't fight back. Roman's lawyers objected, called it irrelevant, prejudicial. The judge overruled them, and for the first time since the trial started, Selene watched Roman break. He stood up in the middle of testimony, face red, and screamed, "This is bullshit! You're trying to destroy my father's legacy!" "Mr. Ashford, sit down," the judge said. "She's lying. All of this is lies." "Mr. Ashford, I built that company. Me. Not her. Not my father. Me." 2 bailiffs moved toward him. Roman's lawyers were trying to pull him back into his seat, but he jerked away from them. "You're a vindictive bitch," he snarled at Selene. "You couldn't stand that I was successful, that I didn't need you anymore. So you destroyed everything." Selene stood, slowly, looked him dead in the eye. "You destroyed yourself," she said. "I just made sure everyone saw it." The bailiffs grabbed Roman, pulled him toward the door. He was still screaming as they dragged him out. The judge banged her gavel. "We'll recess until tomorrow. Mr. Ashford's attorneys, get your client under control or I'll hold him in contempt." The courtroom erupted, reporters scrambling, cameras flashing outside. Selene sat back down, put her head in her hands. Marcus leaned over. "We just won." "It doesn't feel like winning." "It never does." The verdict came down 3 days later. The jury found in Selene's favor. On every count, Roman was ordered to pay Selene $350 million, transfer ownership of multiple intellectual properties back to her, issue a public confession acknowledging her as the architect behind Ashford Global's success. The judge also ordered a separate investigation into Charles Ashford's business practices, which would likely result in criminal charges against several of his former partners and associates. Selene stood on the courthouse steps afterward, microphones shoved in her face, questions screamed from every direction. "How do you feel? What are you going to do now? Do you have any message for Roman Ashford?" Selene looked at the cameras, at the reporters, at the world watching. "I feel free," she said, "and I'm going to build something that actually matters." Then she turned and walked away. Lucien was waiting at the bottom of the steps. He didn't say anything, just fell into step beside her. They got into the car, drove away from the chaos. "You did it," Lucien said. "We did it." "No, this was you." Selene looked out the window, at the city passing by, at the life she was leaving behind. "What now?" she asked. Lucien smiled. "Now we build your empire." And for the first time in months, Selene smiled back. Victory tasted like ash in Selene's mouth. She stood in the penthouse Lucien had arranged for her, 47th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city that had watched her burn her life down and rebuild it from the wreckage. The space was all clean lines and expensive furniture she hadn't picked out. Modern art on walls she'd never touched. It was beautiful and cold and felt nothing like home. 3 weeks had passed since the verdict. 3 weeks of watching Roman's empire crumble in real time. Ashford Global's stock had crashed so hard trading got suspended twice. Board members resigned in waves. Investors fled like rats from a sinking ship. The media called it the biggest corporate scandal in a decade. Selene should have felt triumph, should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt empty. Her phone buzzed on the marble counter. Another text from a journalist wanting an interview. She ignored it. Poured herself a glass of wine she wouldn't drink. Stared at the city below. Behind her, the elevator chimed. Lucien stepped out, carrying a leather folder and wearing an expression Selene had learned to read over the past months. Something was wrong. "We need to talk," he said. Selene turned. "About what?" Lucien set the folder on the counter between them. Didn't open it, just looked at her with eyes that had gone flat and hard. "About what you're going to do with the rest of your life." "That's dramatic, even for you." I'm serious, Selene. You won. You destroyed Roman. You got your money. You got your name back. But what now? Because sitting in this penthouse drinking wine you're not going to finish isn't a plan. I'm thinking. You've been thinking for 3 weeks. Time to do something. Selene took a sip of wine just to spite him. What do you want me to do? I want you to build what we talked about. The strategic firm. The one that actually helps people instead of feeding egos. I don't know if I want to do that anymore. Lucien's expression didn't change. Why not? Because I'm tired. Because I spent 5 years building an empire for someone else and 3 months destroying it. Because maybe I don't want to spend the rest of my life fighting. Then what do you want? Selene opened her mouth, closed it. She didn't have an answer. Lucien picked up the folder, opened it, slid a single document across the counter. Read this. Selene looked down. It was a financial report, dated 2 days ago, from a bank she didn't recognize. Her eyes scanned the numbers, then stopped, went back, read again. The $350 million the court had ordered Roman to pay her. The money that was supposed to be sitting in an escrow account waiting for final transfer. It was gone. All of it. Selene's hands started shaking. What is this? Roman moved it, Lucien said quietly, 3 days before the verdict came down. Transferred every liquid asset he had to offshore accounts. Shell corporations in the Caymans, holding companies in Switzerland, trusts in Luxembourg. That's illegal. Yes. The court can order whatever it wants. If the money's hidden well enough, it doesn't matter. Selene felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. How much is left? In accounts the court can access? 42 million. Out of 350. Yes. And the rest? Gone. And unless you want to spend the next 5 years in international court fighting extradition laws and banking regulations, it's going to stay gone. The wine glass slipped from Selene's hand, shattered on the marble floor, red liquid spreading like blood. She didn't move, just stared at the broken glass, at the mess, at the physical manifestation of everything collapsing again. He knew, she whispered. He knew we were going to win. He's not stupid, Lucien said. Arrogant, yes, but not stupid. He saw the writing on the wall and made sure you couldn't collect. But the properties, the intellectual property rights, those transfer no matter what. They do, but they're worth nothing without capital to leverage them, and Roman made sure to poison the well before he left. He's been quietly spreading rumors to investors, telling them you're unstable, vindictive, that working with you is career suicide. Selene looked up, met Lucien's eyes. Why are you telling me this now? You've known for 2 days. Because I wanted to see if you'd figure out what to do on your own first. And did I? No. You've been sitting in this penthouse feeling sorry for yourself. Anger flared hot in Selene's chest. I'm not feeling sorry for myself, I'm processing. You're hiding. Fuck you. Fuck me? Lucien's voice went cold, sharp. I spent 3 months helping you destroy a man who deserved it. I gave you resources, connections, my reputation. And the second things get complicated, you collapse. Things aren't complicated, they're impossible. Nothing's impossible, you're just scared. Of course I'm scared. Selene's voice cracked. I burned my entire life down. I have no husband, no home, no friends. The only thing I had was that money, and now it's gone. So yes, Lucien, I'm fucking scared. The silence that followed was brutal. Lucien picked up the folder, closed it, set it aside. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, gotten quieter, more dangerous. I need to tell you something, he said. Something I should have told you months ago. Selene felt ice creep down her spine. What? I didn't help you destroy Roman out of the goodness of my heart. I know that. You said it yourself. You wanted a partner. That was part of it, but not all of it. Then what? Lucien walked to the window, looked out at the city. 10 years ago, Roman and I had a business deal, a real estate development project worth $500 million. We were supposed to be partners, 50-50 split. I brought the capital. He brought the land and the permits. Selene waited. Her chest felt tight. Except Roman didn't bring shit, Lucien continued. He sold the land out from under me to a competitor. Took my deposit and used it to finance another project. By the time I found out, the money was gone and there was nothing I could do about it. The contract had a clause buried in the fine print that gave him the right to terminate if he found a better offer. Jesus. I lost everything. Had to rebuild from scratch. It took me 5 years to get back to where I'd been. Lucian turned to face her. So when you called me that night in the rain, wanting to destroy him, I didn't see a woman who needed help. I saw an opportunity for revenge I'd been waiting a decade for. Selene felt like the floor was tilting. You used me. Yes. Everything. The plan. The gala. The trial. All of it was about your revenge, not mine. No, Lucian said. It was about both. Your revenge and mine just happened to align. You should have told me. Would you have still done it if I had? Selene thought about it. About that night. About how desperate she'd been. How broken. I don't know, she said honestly. That's why I didn't tell you. Selene walked to the window, put her palm against the cold glass, watched her reflection stare back at her. So what happens now? Now you decide who you want to be. What does that mean? It means you have two choices, Lucian said. You can walk away, take the 42 million you can actually collect, disappear somewhere quiet, live a comfortable life and try to forget the last 5 years ever happened. Or you fight. You use what you have left to build something real, something that matters. You become the person Roman was too weak to let you be. With what capital? 42 million won't even cover startup costs for what we talked about. Then you get creative. You find investors who believe in you instead of your bank account. You leverage the intellectual property you won. You prove to the world that you're more than just a woman who destroyed her husband. Selene laughed. It came out bitter. That's a nice speech, but you're forgetting something. What? You just admitted you used me for revenge. Why the fuck would I keep working with you? Lucienne smiled. Cold. Because I'm the only person in this city who isn't afraid of you, and because we both know you're not the kind of woman who walks away, no matter how much you want to. Selene wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to throw him out of her penthouse and never see him again. But he was right. She wasn't the kind of woman who walked away. I hate you, she said. I know. If we do this, things are different. Equal partnership, no more secrets. Agreed. And you tell me everything. Every connection, every deal, every skeleton in your closet. Done. Selene turned to face him. Why do you really want to keep working with me? Lucian's expression softened, just slightly. Because you're brilliant. And because brilliance is rare. And because I think together we can build something that actually changes things instead of just making rich people richer. That's almost poetic. Don't get used to it. Selene looked at the broken wine glass on the floor, at the red stain spreading across white marble. I need time. You have 24 hours. After that, I'm moving forward with or without you. That's not much time. It's all the time you need. Lucian walked to the elevator, pressed the button. The doors opened. He stepped inside, turned to face her. For what it's worth, he said, I'm sorry. About using you. About not being honest. But I'm not sorry about what we did to Roman, and I don't think you are either. The doors closed before Selene could respond. She stood alone in the penthouse, surrounded by expensive furniture and broken glass, and a silence so complete it felt like drowning. Her phone buzzed again. She picked it up, a text from a number she didn't recognize. You destroyed my son. I hope you're happy. Margaret Ashford. Selene stared at it, felt something cold settle in her stomach. She scrolled up, read their previous conversation from months ago. Margaret offering her Charles's documents, saying she wanted the truth to matter. Selene called the number. It rang 4 times. Then Margaret's voice. Yes? It's Selene Vey. I know. You told me you wanted Roman destroyed, that he deserved it. I did. Then why are you texting me like I'm the villain? Silence. Then Margaret said, because I thought destroying him would make me feel better. And it didn't. He's my son, no matter what he did. And watching him lose everything broke something in me I didn't know could break. So this is my fault? No, it's mine. I gave you the ammunition. I just didn't think about what it would feel like to watch you use it. He stole from me for 5 years. I know. He erased me. I know. Then why are you calling me like I'm the bad guy? Because there are no good guys in this story, Margaret said. Her voice was tired, ancient. Just people who hurt each other and call it justice. The line went dead. Selene threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall, cracked, fell to the floor. She sank down onto the couch, put her head in her hands, and for the first time since the trial ended, she let herself break. Not because she regretted what she'd done, but because Margaret was right. There were no good guys. Why? Selene didn't sleep that night. She sat in the dark penthouse watching the city lights blur through windows she couldn't clean and thought she couldn't organize. By dawn, she'd made a decision. She called Lucien at 6 a.m. He answered on the first ring. Well? I'm in, Selene said, but we do this my way. Which is? We don't just build a company. We build a movement. We find every woman who's been erased, every person who's been stolen from, every employee who's been exploited, and we give them the tools to fight back. That's ambitious. You said I needed to be creative. I also said you needed investors. Then we find them. People who actually give a shit about changing things instead of just making money. Those people don't exist. Yes, they do. We just have to look harder. Lucien was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Okay, let's do it. I need you to set up meetings. Every progressive investor you know, every venture capitalist who's ever said they care about social impact, every... Selene. What? There's something else you need to know. That ice down the spine feeling again. What? Roman didn't just move his money, he moved yours too. The world stopped. What do you mean he moved mine? The 42 million that was supposed to be accessible? It's gone. As of 3 hours ago. Selene couldn't breathe, couldn't think. How is that possible? It was in escrow. He had inside help, someone at the bank. They're investigating now, but the money's already been transferred out of the country. All of it? All of it. Selene stood up, started pacing. Her heart was hammering so hard she thought it might break through her chest. So I have nothing. You have the intellectual property rights, and you have your reputation. My reputation? Selene laughed. It sounded unhinged. My reputation is that I'm a vindictive ex-wife who destroyed a man's life. That's not exactly a selling point for investors. Then we change the narrative. How? By showing them what you can do. By proving that you're more than the scandal. With what capital, Lucien? How do I prove anything without money? You get scrappy. You bootstrap. Stop! Selene's voice cracked. Just stop with the motivational bullshit. I have nothing. No money. No home. No fucking life. And you're standing there telling me to bootstrap like this is some inspirational movie. What do you want me to say? I want you to be honest. Tell me the truth. Can we actually do this, or is this just another fantasy? Lucien was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I don't know. The honesty hit harder than any lie could have. I have to go, Selene said. Selene. She hung up. Selene spent the next 2 days in the penthouse doing nothing, not thinking, not planning, just existing in a gray fog that felt like drowning from the inside. On the third day, someone knocked on the door. She almost didn't answer, but the knocking continued, persistent, annoying. She opened the door. Ivy stood in the hallway wearing jeans and a t-shirt, holding 2 cups of coffee. She looked different than she had at the trial. Older, tired, real. What are you doing here? Selene asked. I heard about the money, Ivy said. About Roman stealing it. And I came to help. Selene laughed. Help? What the fuck can you help with? I worked for Roman for 2 years. I know where he keeps things, documents, passwords, bank account numbers. I know how he thinks. So? So I can help you find the money. Selene stared at her. Why would you do that? Ivy held out one of the coffee cups. Because Roman destroyed my life too, and because I owe you. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do. I slept with your husband. I helped him lie to you. I'm the reason everything fell apart. No, Selene said. Roman's the reason everything fell apart. You were just stupid enough to believe him. Ivy flinched. I know, and I hate myself for it, but I'm trying to make it right. Selene took the coffee, sipped it. It was good, better than anything she'd made for herself in days. Come in, she said. Ivy stepped inside, looked around at the pristine penthouse, at the broken phone on the floor, at the wine stain no one had cleaned up. Nice place, she said. It's not mine. Whose is it? Lucien's. He's letting me stay here until I figure out what to do with my life. And have you? Figured it out? No. Ivy sat down on the couch, set her coffee on the table. I have an idea, if you want to hear it. I'm listening. Roman has a storage unit in Queens under a fake name. He kept backup drives there, physical copies of everything, contracts, financial records, passwords to accounts he didn't want anyone knowing about. Selene's pulse quickened. How do you know this? He took me there once, about 6 months ago. Said he needed to pick something up. Made me wait in the car, but I saw the unit number. Do you remember it? Yes. Unit 847, facility on Northern Boulevard. And you're sure he keeps financial information there? I saw him pull out a hard drive, heard him on the phone talking about backup accounts. Ivy leaned forward. I think that's where he hid the information about the offshore transfers, the ones he made before the trial. Selene set down her coffee, walked to the window, stared out at the city. This could be nothing, could be a dead end, could be Ivy trying to make herself feel better by pretending she could help, or it could be everything. When can we go? Selene asked. Whenever you want. Selene turned, looked at the girl sitting on the couch, young, broken, trying to rebuild herself from pieces that didn't quite fit together anymore. Why are you really doing this? Selene asked. Ivy met her eyes. Because Roman told me I was special, that I was different, that I mattered. And then the second things got hard. He threw me away like garbage. And I realized that's what he does to everyone. He makes you think you're important, and then he erases you. She paused. You're the only person who ever fought back, and I want to learn how. Selene felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, but recognition. Okay, she said, let's go find out if you're right. The storage facility was exactly what Selene expected. Concrete walls, fluorescent lights, rows of identical orange doors stretching into darkness. She and Ivy stood in front of Unit 847. The lock was standard, nothing fancy. You know how to pick this? Ivy asked. No, do you? No. They stared at the lock. We could call Lucien, Ivy suggested. He probably knows people who… No. Selene's voice was firm. This is between us. Then how do we get in? Selene looked at the lock, at the door, at the concrete walls around them. Then she walked to the facility office. The guy behind the desk was maybe 22, bored out of his mind, playing something on his phone. Help you? He asked without looking up. Yeah, Selene said. I need to get into Unit 847. My ex-husband rented it, and I need to collect my things. You got ID? I have this. Selene pulled out her phone, showed him a photo of her and Roman from 3 years ago, smiling, happy, fake. That's him. That's me. We're going through a divorce and he won't give me the key. The kid squinted at the photo. I'm not supposed to let anyone in without the account holder's permission. I know, but he's being an asshole about the whole thing, and I just want my grandmother's jewelry. That's it. 5 minutes. The kid looked at her, then at Ivy, then back at his phone. $100, he said. Selene pulled out her wallet, handed him 5 20s. Thank you. The kid gave her a key. You got 10 minutes. After that, I'm locking it back up. They walked back to the unit, opened it. Inside was exactly what Selene hoped for, and exactly what she feared. Boxes, dozens of them, stacked floor to ceiling, each one labeled with codes that meant nothing. Shit, Ivy said. Selene stepped inside, started opening boxes. Financial documents, old contracts, legal files from cases that had been settled years ago, but no hard drives. They searched for 8 minutes, tearing through boxes, creating chaos. It's not here, Ivy said. Her voice was panicking. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Wait. Selene was standing in the back corner, looking at a box that was different from the others, smaller, newer. She opened it. Inside were 3 external hard drives, each one labeled with dates. The most recent one was dated 4 months ago, right before the trial. Selene picked it up, felt its weight, felt the possibility it represented. "Found it," she said. They got out of the facility with 6 minutes to spare, drove back to the penthouse in silence, both of them too afraid to hope this meant anything. Back in the penthouse, Selene plugged the hard drive into her laptop, password protected. "Fuck," she said. "Try his birthday," Ivy suggested. Selene tried it. Wrong. "Try your anniversary." Wrong. "Try his mother's name." Wrong. Selene sat back, stared at the screen. "This is useless. We have the drive, but we can't access it." "Wait," Ivy said. She leaned forward. "Try Blackthorn 847. "What?" "Blackthorn Tower, where his office was, and 847, the storage unit number. He always used combinations of places and numbers, said it was safer than names." Selene typed it in. The drive unlocked. Inside were folders. Hundreds of them, each one organized by date and category. Selene clicked on the most recent folder. Financial transfers, account numbers, routing information, passwords, everything. Every penny Roman had moved, every offshore account, every shell corporation, all of it documented in meticulous detail. "Oh my God," Ivy whispered. Selene's hands were shaking. "He kept records. He actually kept records. Why would he do that?" "Insurance, in case someone came after him. He could use it as leverage." "Can we use it?" Selene looked at the screen, at months of planning and theft laid out in black and white. "Yes," she said. "We can." She pulled out her phone, called Lucien. He answered immediately. "Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for 2 days." "I found something," Selene said. "Something big." "What?" "Proof. Of everything Roman did, every transfer, every account, and the passwords to access them." Silence. Then Lucien said, "Are you serious?" "Yes." "How?" "Does it matter?" "No. Where are you?" "Your penthouse." "Stay there. I'm coming up." The line went dead. Selene looked at Ivy. "Thank you." "For what?" "For remembering, for caring enough to try." Ivy smiled, small, sad. "I owed you that much." The elevator chimed. Lucien stepped out, looking more disheveled than Selene had ever seen him. His tie was loose. His hair wasn't perfect. He saw the laptop, saw the files open on the screen. "Show me," he said. Selene turned the laptop toward him, let him scroll through the documents, watched his expression change from skeptical to stunned. "This is everything," he said quietly. "I know. With this we can trace every dollar, recover most of it, maybe all of it." "I know." Lucien looked up, met her eyes. "How did you find this?" Selene glanced at Ivy. "I had help." Lucien followed her gaze, saw Ivy sitting on the couch. His expression hardened. "You brought her here?" "She's the reason we have this. She's also the reason Roman knew how to manipulate you in the first place." "That's not fair," Ivy said quietly. "Isn't it?" Lucien's voice went cold. "You slept with her husband, helped him lie to her, and now you show up pretending to help out of guilt? I'm not pretending. I want to make things right." "You can't make this right. The damage is done." "Lucien," Selene's voice cut through the tension. "Enough. She helped me. That's all that matters." Lucien stared at her, then at Ivy, then back at the laptop. "Fine," he said, "but she doesn't get to be part of what comes next. This is between us." "Actually," Selene said slowly, "I think she should be part of it." "What?" "She knows Roman, knows how he thinks, and she has nothing left to lose, which makes her useful. It also makes her dangerous. Everything's dangerous." Selene closed the laptop. "But we're doing this anyway, so she's in." Lucien looked like he wanted to argue. Then he shook his head. "Your funeral." "It usually is," Selene said. She stood, walked to the window, looked out at the city that had watched her fall apart and was about to watch her rise again. "So what's the plan?" Ivy asked. Selene turned, looked at both of them, at the people who'd become her unlikely allies in a war she'd never wanted to fight. We take everything back, she said. Every dollar, every piece of property, every ounce of power Roman stole. And then we make sure he understands exactly what it feels like to be erased. How? Lucien asked. Selene smiled, cold, sharp, dangerous, by becoming everything he was terrified I'd become. And in that moment, standing in the borrowed penthouse with broken glass on the floor and blood-red wine stains on white marble, Selene Vey realized something that should have terrified her, but instead felt like coming home. She wasn't the woman who'd stood in Blackthorn Tower 5 months ago, watching rain blur the city into nothing. She was someone else now, someone harder, sharper, unbreakable, someone who'd learned that the only way to survive betrayal was to become the thing your enemy feared most. And Roman Ashford had every reason to be afraid, because Selene wasn't just coming for his money anymore. She was coming for his soul. Fanbon. The war room looked like controlled chaos had given birth to something uglier. Lucien's office was covered in documents, printed spreadsheets taped to windows, bank statements scattered across every surface, sticky notes color-coded by urgency plastered on walls like evidence in a crime thriller. 3 laptops sat open on the conference table, screens glowing with financial data that would have made most people's eyes cross. Empty coffee cups created a skyline of exhaustion across the desk. Selene had been awake for 36 hours straight. Her eyes burned. Her hands shook when she reached for things. But she couldn't stop. Not now. Not when they were this close. Marcus Brennan sat at one end of the table, reading through the documents they'd pulled from Roman's hard drive. Every few minutes he'd make a noise, a grunt or a sharp inhale, that told Selene they'd found something else damning. Ivy was curled in a chair by the window, laptop balanced on her knees, cross-referencing account numbers with offshore banking regulations. She looked like she hadn't slept either, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a knot that had given up trying to be neat. Lucien paced, back and forth across the length of the office like a caged animal. He'd taken his jacket off hours ago, sleeves rolled up, tie gone. This was the most disheveled Selene had ever seen him, and somehow it made him look more dangerous instead of less. "We have him," Marcus said suddenly. He held up a document. "This right here. This is criminal fraud, not civil, criminal. Federal prosecutors would fight over who gets to indict him first." "Show me," Selene said. Marcus walked over, spread the papers out in front of her. These transfers happened 3 days before the verdict. Roman moved $230 million through a series of shell corporations designed specifically to hide assets from court-ordered judgments. That's not just asset protection. That's criminal conspiracy to commit fraud. "Can we prove it?" Lucien asked. "With this?" Marcus tapped the documents. "Yes, we have transaction records, timestamps, communications between Roman and the bankers who helped him. It's airtight." "How long until we can file?" Selene asked. "I can have the paperwork ready in 48 hours, but there's a problem." Of course there was. "What problem?" Selene's voice came out flatter than she intended. "The statute of limitations on financial fraud is 5 years. But for federal criminal fraud involving this amount of money, the investigation process alone could take months. And in that time, Roman can move the money again, deeper, somewhere we'll never find it." "So we're fucked," Ivy said from her corner. "Not necessarily," Marcus said. "If we can freeze the accounts before he realizes we have this information, we can lock down the money. But that requires speed and coordination with multiple international banking authorities." "How fast are we talking?" Lucien asked. 72 hours? Maybe less." Selene felt her stomach drop. "That's not enough time." "It's the time we have. What if he finds out we have the hard drive? What if he's monitoring his accounts right now and sees us poking around? Then he'll move everything tonight, and we'll lose our shot." The room went silent, the kind of heavy silence that feels like pressure building before an explosion. Selene walked to the window, pressed her forehead against the cold glass. The city stretched out below her, millions of lights representing millions of lives that had nothing to do with her war. She envied them. "There's another option," Lucien said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "What option?" Selene asked. "We force his hand, make him panic, Make him do something stupid that exposes the accounts before he has time to move them again. How? Lucian's smile was sharp enough to cut. We go public, tonight. We leak the documents to every major news outlet. Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg. We make this so big, so loud, that Roman has to respond immediately, and when he does, he'll make mistakes. That's insane, Marcus said. If we go public before filing criminal charges, we lose control of the narrative. Roman's lawyers will spin this as corporate espionage. They'll say we stole the documents illegally. Did we? Lucian asked. Marcus looked at Ivy. How did you get access to that storage unit? Ivy's face went pale. I gave the attendant money to let us in. So bribery and breaking and entering. It was Roman's storage unit, Selene said. Technically, I'm still his wife until the divorce is finalized. I had every right. No, you didn't, Marcus interrupted. Not legally, which means everything on that hard drive is potentially inadmissible in court. And if we use it publicly before securing proper legal channels, Roman can claim we're harassing him, stalking him. He could get a restraining order that prevents us from even talking about this. Then what the fuck do we do? Selene's voice cracked. We have proof. We have evidence. We have everything we need, but we can't use it? We can use it, Marcus said carefully. We just have to be smart about how. I'm tired of being smart, Selene said. I'm tired of playing by rules that Roman ignores. I'm tired of watching him get away with shit because he has better lawyers. Then you're going to lose, Marcus said bluntly, because the law doesn't care how tired you are. It cares about procedure. And if we violate procedure, everything we've worked for disappears. Selene wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to burn the whole city down just to watch it light up. Instead, she took a breath. Then another. Okay, she said. Then we do this the right way. We file criminal charges. We coordinate with banking authorities. We wait the 72 hours. And if Roman moves the money in that time, Ivy asked, then we adapt. That's not a plan. It's the only plan we have. Lucian was staring at her. You're sure about this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He nodded slowly. Then we move. Now. Marcus, start the paperwork. Ivy, compile everything we have into a format prosecutors can actually read. I'll contact the banking authorities. What do you want me to do? Selene asked. Lucian looked at her. You need to sleep. I can't. You've been awake for a day and a half. You're no good to us dead on your feet. Go lie down for 4 hours. When you wake up, we'll be in the middle of this and you'll need your brain working. Selene wanted to argue, but she was so tired her bones ached. So tired her vision was blurring at the edges. 4 hours, she said. 4 hours. She walked to the guest room, lay down on top of the covers fully dressed, closed her eyes. Sleep came like a hammer. She woke up to shouting. It took Selene a second to remember where she was. The guest room, Lucien's building, the war they were fighting. The shouting was coming from the office. She got up, stumbled to the door, opened it. Lucian and Marcus were standing face to face, both of them red-faced and furious. Completely out of line, Marcus was saying. You can't just contact federal prosecutors without consulting me first. I wasn't asking for permission, Lucian shot back. We needed to move fast and you were busy drafting memos. Those memos are what keep us from getting disbarred or arrested. And while you're worried about that, Roman's moving money. Stop. Selene's voice cut through the argument. Both men turned to look at her. What happened? Lucian ran a hand through his hair. I reached out to a contact at the DOJ, gave them a preliminary overview of what we have. They're interested. He also told them where we got the information, Marcus added, his voice tight with anger, which means they now know we obtained evidence through questionable means. I told them the truth, Lucian said, that we found documents in a storage facility that belonged to Roman Ashford. I didn't specify how we got in. That's called lying by omission, and federal prosecutors can smell that shit from a mile away. Then they'll ask questions, and we'll deal with them. We'll deal with them? I'm the lawyer here. I'm the one who has to... Enough! Selene's voice was louder than she intended. Both men went silent. What's done is done. Marcus, can you fix this? Marcus took a breath. Let it out slow. Maybe. if I move fast and frame this correctly, but Lucien needs to stop going rogue. Agreed, Selene said. She looked at Lucien. No more unilateral decisions. We coordinate, all of us, or this falls apart. Lucien's jaw tightened. For a second, she thought he was going to argue. Then he nodded once. Fine. Good. Now, where are we? The DOJ contact wants a meeting, Lucien said. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. They want to see everything. Then we give them everything, Selene said. It's not that simple, Marcus said. If we hand over evidence obtained illegally, they can't use it, which means we need to find a way to make this look like we obtained it legally. How do we do that? We don't, Marcus said. Ivy does. Everyone looked at Ivy. She'd been sitting quietly in the corner during the argument, but now she straightened up. What do you mean? She asked. You used to work for Roman, Marcus said. You had access to his office, his files. If you testify that you obtained these documents while you were still employed, that Roman gave you access to the storage unit for business purposes, then the documents are admissible. But that's not true. It's close enough to true. You did work for him. You did have legitimate access to his office. The storage unit is a gray area, but if you frame it correctly, it becomes plausible. You want me to lie to federal prosecutors, Ivy said. I want you to tell a version of the truth that protects everyone in this room. Ivy looked at Selene. What do you think? Selene thought about it, about risk and reward, about the line between justice and revenge, about how far she was willing to go. I think you need to do what you're comfortable with, Selene said, but I also think this might be our only shot. Ivy was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Okay, I'll do it. Marcus nodded. Good. I'll prep you before the meeting. We'll go over every detail until it's airtight. What about Roman? Selene asked. If we're meeting with prosecutors tomorrow, when does he find out? He doesn't, Lucien said. Not until after we've frozen his accounts. We hit him before he knows we're coming. And if he finds out anyway, then we're fucked. Selene's phone buzzed. She looked down at it. A text from an unknown number. I know what you're planning. We need to talk. Her blood went cold. He knows, she said. Lucien crossed the room in 2 steps, looked at her phone. His face went hard. How? I don't know. Could he be monitoring our communications? Marcus asked. Possibly, but that would require... Lucien stopped, looked at Ivy. Does Roman have your phone number? Ivy nodded. Yeah, why? Because if he's been tracking your phone, he knows you were at the storage facility. He knows you came here. He knows everything. Oh, God, Ivy whispered. Selene's phone buzzed again. Meet me in 1 hour, the coffee shop on 5th and 42nd. Come alone or I release everything to the media. He's bluffing, Lucien said. He can't release anything without incriminating himself. Can't he? Selene looked at him. What if he doesn't care anymore? What if he's willing to burn everything down just to make sure I don't win? Then we call his bluff. Or I go meet him. Absolutely not, Lucien said. That's what he wants, to get you alone, to manipulate you, to what? Kill me? In a public coffee shop? To record you, to get you to say something he can use against you, to make you look unstable or vindictive, or I am vindictive, Selene said calmly. And I don't care if he records me, because I'm done hiding. Selene, I'm going. She picked up her coat. You want to help? Make sure that meeting with the DOJ happens tomorrow, no matter what. Make sure the accounts get frozen. Make sure this doesn't fall apart if Roman tries something. And if he does try something, Marcus asked. Selene looked at him. Then you make sure he regrets it. She walked to the elevator, pressed the button. Lucien grabbed her arm. This is a mistake, probably, but it's my mistake to make. I'm coming with you. No, he said alone. I don't give a shit what he said. Selene pulled her arm free. Lucien, I need to do this by myself. I need to look him in the eye one more time and make sure he understands that he lost. The elevator doors opened. Selene stepped inside. If you're not back in 2 hours, I'm coming to find you, Lucien said. Deal. The doors closed. The coffee shop was one of those chains that looked the same in every city. Bright lights, uncomfortable chairs, the smell of burnt coffee and capitalism. Roman was sitting in the back corner, wearing jeans and a hoodie that made him look younger than he was. Smaller, like a man trying to disappear. He saw her come in, didn't smile, didn't wave, just watched her walk toward him with eyes that looked hollowed out. Selene sat down across from him, didn't take off her coat. "You came," Roman said. "You threatened me. What choice did I have?" "You always have a choice. That's what you told me, right? At the trial? That I chose to steal from you?" "You did," Roman laughed. It sounded broken. "Yeah, I did. And you chose to destroy me for it. What do you want, Roman?" He leaned forward. His eyes were bloodshot, exhausted. "I want to know why." "You know why." "No, I know you were angry. I know you felt betrayed, but destroying my entire life, taking everything, that's not anger, that's something else. It's justice. It's revenge. Same thing." "No, it's not." Roman's voice cracked. "Justice is balanced. What you did to me was scorched earth. You didn't just want me to pay for what I did. You wanted me to suffer." Selene felt nothing, just cold, empty distance. "Yes, I did." "Why?" "Because you erased me. For 5 years you took everything I built and put your name on it. You made me invisible. You made me nothing." "I loved you." "No, you loved what I could do for you." "That's not true." "Then why did you fuck Ivy in the office I designed? Why did you hide our anniversary wine so you could drink it with her? Why did you move our money, my money, offshore so I couldn't touch it?" Roman's hands were shaking. "Because I was scared." "Of what?" "Of you." He looked up, met her eyes. "Of how smart you are. How capable. I knew if you ever realized you didn't need me, you'd leave. So I kept you small, kept you hidden, kept you dependent. And when that stopped working, I panicked. I made mistakes. He stopped, pressed his palms against his eyes. "I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me because I was too fucking proud to admit I wasn't the genius everyone thought I was." Selene watched him. This man she'd loved. This man she'd built an empire for. This man who'd taken everything and given nothing back. She felt nothing. "Is that what you wanted to tell me?" she asked. "That you're sorry?" "I don't know what I wanted to tell you. I needed to see you one more time before everything falls apart completely." "It already fell apart, Roman, months ago." "I know." He wiped his eyes. "But I keep thinking about what we had, before everything got complicated, when it was just you and me working together, building something. We were good together. We were never good together. I was good. You took credit. That's not fair. Life's not fair." Roman slumped back in his chair, looked out the window at the city moving past. "What happens now?" "Now you face consequences. Real ones, federal prosecutors, criminal charges. Prison, probably. And you get everything." "I get what was always mine." "Does that make you happy?" Selene thought about it. About the empty penthouse. About the sleepless nights. About the way victory tasted like nothing. "No," she said honestly. "It doesn't." "Then why do it?" "Because happiness isn't the point. Freedom is." Roman looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in years she saw recognition in his eyes. Like he was finally seeing who she actually was instead of who he needed her to be. "I destroyed you," he said quietly. "Yes, you did. And now you're destroying me." "Yes, I am. Does that make us even?" "No, because I'm going to survive this, and you're not." Roman's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. For everything. For Ivy. For stealing your work. For making you feel invisible. I'm so fucking sorry." Selene stood up, buttoned her coat. "I know you are, but it doesn't change anything." "Selene, goodbye, Roman." She walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. The cold air hit her like a slap. She stood on the sidewalk breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lucien. "Yen, you okay?" She typed back. "Yeah, on my way back." But she wasn't okay. She was unraveling. 5 months of rage and planning and fighting were catching up to her all at once, and she didn't know how to process it. She started walking, not toward Lucian's building, toward the water. She ended up at a pier on the east side, staring out at the dark river reflecting city lights. The same pier where she'd met Lucian that first morning, where this whole thing started. She thought about Roman's face, about the broken way he'd apologized, about how small he'd looked. She'd wanted this, wanted to see him destroyed, wanted him to understand what he'd done, but now that she had it, it felt hollow. Her phone rang. "Lucienne," she answered. "I'm fine. Where are you?" "Pier 17. I'm coming to get you." "You don't have to sit. I'm already in the car." The line went dead. Selene stood there, staring at the water, until headlights swept across the pier behind her. Lucian got out of the car, walked over to where she was standing, didn't say anything, just stood next to her. "He apologized," Selene said after a while. "Do you believe him?" "Yeah, I do." "Does it change anything?" "No." They stood in silence, watching the water, watching the city breathe and bleed across the horizon. "I saw my father kill a man once," Lucian said suddenly. Selene turned to look at him. "What?" "I was 16. We were in Miami. My father had a business partner who'd been skimming money. Small amounts. Thought no one would notice." Lucian's voice was flat, emotionless. "My father invited him to dinner. Friendly, casual. And halfway through dessert, he put a gun on the table and asked the man to explain himself." "Jesus." "The man tried to lie. Said it was a misunderstanding, that he'd pay it back. My father listened to the whole thing, nodded along. Then he shot him in the head right there at the table." Selene felt sick. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because afterward I asked my father how he could do that, how he could kill someone he'd worked with for 10 years. And he said, 'Because mercy is the luxury of people who have nothing to lose, and I have everything to lose.'" "That's psychotic." "Yes, it is." Lucian looked at her. "But he was also right. When you're fighting for survival, mercy gets you killed." "I'm not fighting for survival. I'm fighting for revenge." "No. You're fighting for your right to exist. Roman tried to erase you. You're making sure that never happens again. That's not revenge. That's self-preservation." Selene felt tears burning behind her eyes. She'd been holding them back for months, since the night she found the text message, since the trial, since everything. "I don't want to become your father," she whispered. "You won't, because you know the difference between justice and cruelty. He didn't." "How do you know?" "Because you're standing here questioning yourself instead of celebrating Roman's destruction, because you still have a conscience. That's the difference." Selene let out a breath that felt like she'd been holding it forever. "What if I lose that? What if I keep fighting and keep winning until I become the thing I hated about Roman? Then I'll tell you, and you'll listen, because that's what partners do." "Are we partners?" "I don't know. Are we?" Selene thought about it, about trust and betrayal, about the man standing next to her who'd used her for revenge, but also helped her reclaim herself. "Yeah," she said finally. "We are." Lucienne smiled, small, real. "Good, because I'm tired of doing this alone." "Doing what?" "Fighting, building, surviving, all of it." They stood there for another minute. Then Lucienne said, "We need to go. The DOJ meeting is in 8 hours, and you need to be sharp." "I know. Can you do this? Tomorrow? Can you sit across from federal prosecutors and tell them everything?" Selene looked out at the water one more time, at the city that had broken her and rebuilt her into something harder. "Yes," she said, "I can." They walked back to the car, got in, drove through the empty streets toward whatever came next. And as they moved through the darkness, Selene realized something that should have terrified her, but instead felt like finally coming home. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of Roman, not of failure, not of the person she was becoming, because the person she was becoming was exactly who she needed to be. And tomorrow, when she walked into that DOJ meeting and laid out every piece of evidence they had, when she watched federal agents move to freeze Roman's accounts and issue warrants for his arrest, when she finally, permanently, irreversibly destroyed the man who tried to erase her, she wouldn't feel guilty. She would feel free. The car pulled up to Lucien's building. They rode the elevator in silence, walked into the office where Marcus and Ivy were still working. "Well?" Marcus asked. "Roman knows," Selene said, "but it doesn't matter. We move forward. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. We give them everything. And if Roman tries to move the money tonight, then we've already lost. But I don't think he will." "Why not?" "Because he's tired and broken, and he doesn't have the energy to run anymore." Lucien walked to the window, looked out at the city starting to lighten with dawn. "Then this is it, the end game. No more delays, no more second chances, no more mercy," Ivy added quietly. Selene looked at all of them. These people who'd become her unlikely army in a war she never wanted to fight. "No more mercy," she agreed, and as the sun began to rise over a city that had watched her fall and rise and fall again, Selene Vey made herself one final promise. Whatever happened next, whatever came from this meeting, whatever consequences followed, she would face it standing up. She would face it with her eyes open, and she would never ever let anyone make her invisible again. The war was almost over, but the real battle, the one for who she would become after the dust settled, that was just beginning. The Department of Justice building looked like every federal building in America. Gray concrete, American flags hanging limp in windless air, security checkpoints designed to make you feel like you'd already done something wrong just by showing up. Selene stood on the sidewalk outside at 8:45 in the morning, staring at the entrance. She'd been awake all night, again, her fourth consecutive night without real sleep. Her body felt like it was held together with caffeine and spite. Marcus stood next to her, briefcase in hand, wearing the kind of suit lawyers wore when they wanted to be taken seriously. Ivy was on her other side, pale and shaking, dressed conservatively in clothes that made her look like someone's paralegal instead of the girl who'd helped blow open the biggest financial fraud case in years. Lucien hadn't come. He'd wanted to, but Marcus had been adamant. "Federal prosecutors don't trust people like Lucien Vale," so he'd said. His presence would hurt more than help. So it was just the three of them. "Ready?" Marcus asked. Selene took a breath. "No, but let's do it anyway." They walked inside, through metal detectors, past armed guards, down hallways that smelled like floor wax and bureaucracy, into an elevator that took them up 7 floors, down another hallway, to a conference room with a view of nothing. 3 people were already waiting inside. A woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that looked like they'd seen every lie ever told. A younger man, maybe 30, holding a legal pad and a pen that he was tapping against the table like a nervous heartbeat, and an older man, 60-something, with the kind of face that had stopped caring about pretense decades ago. The woman stood, extended her hand. "Ms. Vey, I'm Deputy Director Patricia Hollis. This is Assistant U.S. Attorney James Chen and Senior Investigator Frank Dorsey." Selene shook her hand. Her grip was firm. No nonsense. "Thank you for meeting with us." "Let's be clear about something before we start," Patricia said. "We don't take meetings like this lightly. Your attorney indicated you have evidence of federal financial crimes. We're here to evaluate that evidence. Not to promise anything, not to make deals, just to listen." "Understood," Marcus said. They all sat down. Marcus opened his briefcase, pulled out 3 identical folders, slid them across the table. "Everything you need is in there," he said. "Transaction records, bank statements, communications, passwords to offshore accounts, a complete map of how Roman Ashford moved $308 million through shell corporations to avoid a court-ordered judgment." James Chen opened his folder, started reading. His eyes got wider with each page. Frank Dorsey was reading too, making notes on his legal pad. Patricia Hollis read in silence. Her face gave nothing away. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The only sound was pages turning and pens scratching. Finally, Patricia looked up. "Where did you get this?" "From a storage unit rented under Roman Ashford's name," Marcus said. "How did you gain access?" "Ms. Vey is still legally married to Mr. Ashford. She had reasonable cause to believe the storage unit contained marital assets." "That's not what I asked." Marcus shifted in his seat. Ms. Hartley, who formerly worked as Mr. Ashford's assistant, accompanied Ms. Vey to the facility. They gained entry through legitimate means. Patricia looked at Ivy. Is that true? Ivy's hands were shaking under the table. Selene could see her knee bouncing, nervous energy looking for an exit. Yes, Ivy said. Her voice was quiet but steady. I knew about the storage unit because Roman, Mr. Ashford, took me there once while I was working for him. He needed to retrieve documents for a business deal. I saw the unit number. And you just happened to remember it months later? I have a good memory. Convenient. It's the truth. Patricia leaned back, studied Ivy like she was a specimen under glass. Then she looked at Selene. Ms. Vey, are you aware that obtaining evidence through questionable means can compromise a prosecution? Yes. And you're willing to testify that everything in these documents is accurate? Yes. Even though your ex-husband's lawyers will argue you fabricated this evidence as revenge for his affair. Selene felt something hot flare in her chest. I didn't fabricate anything. Every document in that folder is real. Every transaction happened. Every account exists. If you don't believe me, trace the money yourself. Call the banks. Check the timestamps. It's all verifiable. Patricia's expression didn't change. We will. But verification takes time. Weeks. Maybe months. We don't have months, Selene said. Roman knows we have this information. If he hasn't moved the money already, he will soon. That's his prerogative. We can't freeze assets without probable cause. You have probable cause. It's sitting in front of you. What we have is evidence obtained under questionable circumstances by parties with obvious bias. Then what the fuck are we supposed to do? The words came out before Selene could stop them. Watch him get away with it? Again? Ms. Vey, Marcus said quietly. A warning. But Selene was done being quiet, done being careful, done playing games with people who treated justice like a bureaucratic procedure instead of something that actually mattered. I spent 5 years building an empire, she said. 5 years watching my husband take credit for my work. 5 years being invisible while he became famous. And when I finally fought back, when I finally proved what he did, he stole the money I was owed and hid it offshore. And now you're sitting here telling me that because I didn't follow proper procedure, he gets to keep it? I'm telling you that the law has rules. The law has rules that protect men like Roman Ashford, men with money and lawyers and connections, men who know exactly how to manipulate the system so they never face real consequences. That's not fair. You're right. It's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, but it's true. The room went silent. Patricia Hollis looked at Selene with an expression that might have been respect or might have been pity. Selene couldn't tell which. I understand your frustration, Patricia said finally. But if we move too fast, if we cut corners, Roman Ashford walks. His lawyers will get everything thrown out on technicalities, and then he wins. Permanently. Is that what you want? Selene slumped back in her chair, felt exhaustion crash over her like a wave. No. Then let us do our job. Give us time to build an airtight case. We'll move as fast as we can, but we have to do this right. How much time? 6 weeks, maybe 8. That's too long. It's the time we need. Selene looked at Marcus. He gave a small nod. Resignation. Agreement. She looked at Ivy. The girl looked like she might throw up. Okay, Selene said quietly. 6 weeks. Patricia stood. We'll be in touch. In the meantime, don't contact Roman Ashford. Don't talk to the press. Don't do anything that could compromise this investigation. What if he contacts me? Document it, but don't engage. And if he moves the money, then we'll adapt. It was the same thing Selene had said to Ivy days ago. The non-answer that meant they were all just making this up as they went along. They left the building in silence, walked 3 blocks before anyone spoke. That went well, Ivy said. Her voice was hollow. No, it didn't, Marcus said. But it could have gone worse. How? Selene asked. They could have refused to investigate at all. The fact that they're taking this seriously means we have a shot. A shot. After 6 to 8 weeks. While Roman moves money we'll never find. We don't know that he's moving it. Yes, we do. He's not stupid. He knows what's coming. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. A text from an unknown number. You made your choice. Now live with it. Selene showed it to Marcus. That's a threat, he said. It's a statement. We should document this. Show it to the DOJ. It won't change anything. It establishes a pattern of, Marcus, it won't change anything. She started walking again, toward the street, toward nowhere. Ivy caught up to her. What are we going to do? I don't know. We can't just wait 6 weeks. We don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Selene stopped, turned, looked at this girl who'd been her enemy and was now somehow her ally. What do you suggest? We go after him ourselves, not legally, but practically. We expose him publicly, make it so loud that he can't hide. The DOJ told us not to go to the press. So, they're not our bosses. No, but they're the only shot we have at getting that money back. What if the money doesn't matter anymore? Ivy asked. What if we stop trying to recover it and start trying to make sure everyone knows what he did, so he can't do it to anyone else? Selene stared at her. That's not justice. That's just revenge. Maybe that's all we get. Mutz. Selene went back to the penthouse alone. Told Marcus and Ivy she needed time to think, time to process, time to figure out what the hell she was supposed to do next. The penthouse was empty. Quiet. Lucien had left a note on the counter. Had to handle something. Back tonight. L. No details. No explanation. Just another person in her life who came and went without warning. Selene walked to the window, looked out at the city that had become both her prison and her kingdom. Somewhere down there, Roman was plotting his next move. Somewhere down there, federal prosecutors were building a case that might take months. Somewhere down there, life was moving forward while hers felt stuck. Her phone rang. Private number. She answered. Hello? Selene Vey? A woman's voice. Older, professional. Yes? My name is Catherine Torres. I'm a producer for 60 Minutes. I'd like to talk to you about doing an interview. Selene's pulse quickened. How did you get this number? That's not important. What's important is that we want to tell your story, the real story, about what Roman Ashford did, about how you fought back, about what's happening now. I can't talk to the press. I'm in the middle of a federal investigation. I know. That's why we want to talk to you. Because the public deserves to know what's really happening. Not the sanitized version. Not the legal spin. The truth. The truth will come out in court. Will it? Or will Roman Ashford's lawyers bury it under motions and appeals and settlements that keep everything sealed? How many cases like this end with the public never knowing what actually happened? Selene was quiet. Ms. Vey, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen hundreds of cases where powerful men did terrible things and got away with it because they could afford to wait out the system. You have a chance to change that, to make this so public that hiding becomes impossible. The DOJ told me not to. The DOJ wants you to be patient and quiet while they build their case. But patient and quiet is how men like Roman Ashford win. By outlasting you. By making you give up before justice happens. Selene closed her eyes, felt the weight of 6 months pressing down on her shoulders. If I do this, if I go public, I risk compromising everything. You risk it, but you don't guarantee it, and sometimes risk is the only thing that forces action. I need to think about it. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, we're moving on to other stories. The line went dead. Selene stood at the window for another hour, thinking, weighing options, calculating risks. Then she called Lucien. He answered immediately. You okay? 60 Minutes wants to interview me. Silence. Then, what did you tell them? That I needed to think about it. Smart. What are you thinking? That maybe Ivy was right. Maybe we stop trying to play by rules that only protect people like Roman. Maybe we burn it all down publicly and let the DOJ clean up the ashes. That's dangerous. Everything's dangerous. If you do this, there's no going back. The DOJ might drop the case entirely. Roman's lawyers will use it against you. You'll be the story instead of him. I'm already the story. Might as well control the narrative. Lucien was quiet for a moment. Then he said, if you're doing this, do it right. Don't just tell them what happened. Show them why it matters. Make it bigger than you and Roman. Make it about every person who's ever been erased by someone more powerful. That's ambitious. You're not afraid of ambitious. Selene smiled, small, tired. No, I'm not. Then do it. And I'll make sure the fallout doesn't kill you. How? By being better at damage control than Roman's lawyers are at spinning lies. That's a bold promise. I'm a bold person. Selene hung up, called Catherine Torres back. I'll do the interview, she said, but I have conditions. I'm listening. No editing out context, no sound bites that make me look vindictive. And you talk to other people Romans hurt, former employees, business partners, people who couldn't afford to fight back. Done. When can you come in? Tomorrow, 4 p.m. We'll be ready. The interview took 6 hours. Catherine Torres was exactly what Selene expected. Sharp, thorough, relentless. She asked questions that felt like scalpels cutting through scar tissue. Did you love him? Yes. Do you still? No. When did that change? When I realized he never loved me back. Not really. He loved what I could do for him. There's a difference. Some people will say this is just revenge, that you're a bitter ex-wife who can't accept that her husband moved on. Some people will always find ways to make women the villains when they fight back. I stopped caring what those people think. Do you regret any of it? The public humiliation, the trial, the way you destroyed his reputation? Selene thought about it, about Roman's face in the coffee shop, about the broken way he'd apologized, about the hollowness of victory. I regret that it was necessary, she said finally. I regret that fighting back required scorched earth, but I don't regret doing it, because the alternative was disappearing, and I'm done being invisible. The interview aired 3 days later. Selene watched it alone in the penthouse, saw herself on screen looking tired and hard and unbreakable, heard her own voice explaining what Roman had done, watched as the show cut to interviews with former employees who confirmed everything, with financial experts who laid out the fraud in simple terms, with lawyers who explained why cases like this rarely see justice. By the time the episode ended, Selene's phone was exploding with messages, some supportive, some hateful, some from reporters wanting follow-up interviews, and one from Marcus. The DOJ is furious. They're threatening to drop the case. Call me. Selene called. What the hell were you thinking? Marcus's voice was sharp with anger. I told you not to talk to the press. I know. So why did you? Because waiting 6 to 8 weeks wasn't a plan. It was a hope. And I'm done hoping. Well, congratulations. You just made my job 10 times harder. Patricia Hollis called me personally to say you violated their trust. They're considering pulling resources from the investigation entirely. Then let them. Let them? Selene, without the DOJ, we have nothing. No way to freeze assets, no way to prosecute, no way to... We have the truth, and now the whole country knows it. That's worth more than a DOJ investigation that might take years and might not even succeed. That's not how this works. Then maybe this doesn't work. Maybe the system is broken, and fighting within it was always going to fail. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I can't represent you anymore. Selene felt something cold settle in her chest. What? If you're not going to listen to legal advice, there's no point in me giving it. You need a lawyer who's willing to blow things up. That's not me. Marcus, I'm sorry, Selene. I really am. But I can't watch you destroy yourself. The line went dead. Selene sat in the empty penthouse, staring at her phone. First Roman, then her marriage, then her safety, now her lawyer. Everything she touched turned to ash. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Lucien. Turn on CNN. She grabbed the remote, switched to CNN. Breaking news banner across the screen. Federal agents raid Ashford Global Headquarters. Footage of federal agents carrying boxes out of Blackthorn Tower. Roman being let out in handcuffs. Cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. The anchor's voice filled the room. In a stunning development, federal prosecutors have moved to arrest Roman Ashford on multiple counts of financial fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. This comes just days after a bombshell interview on 60 Minutes where his ex-wife, Selene Vey, detailed years of alleged intellectual property theft and financial misconduct. Selene couldn't breathe. They'd done it. The DOJ had moved. Not in 6 weeks. Now. Her phone rang. Patricia Hollis. Selene answered. I thought you were dropping the case. We were, Patricia said, Until your interview hit 30 million views in 48 hours. Until senators started calling asking why we weren't investigating. Until the evidence became too public to ignore. She paused. You forced our hand, and I'm not sure if I should thank you or charge you with obstruction. Did you freeze the accounts? We froze everything we could find. Roman's lawyers are fighting it, but we have enough probable cause now to hold the assets while we investigate. How much? 217 million. The rest is either already moved or hidden deeper than we can reach right now. Not all of it, but enough. What happens to Roman? Selene asked. He'll be arraigned tomorrow. Bail will be set high, very high. He'll probably make it, but he won't be leaving the country. And then we build the case. For real this time. With everything you gave us plus what we're finding in the raids. If he's convicted, he's looking at 15 to 20 years federal prison. Selene closed her eyes, felt something release in her chest. Not joy, not satisfaction, just exhaustion. The kind that comes after fighting for so long you forget what peace feels like. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me. You did this. For better or worse. Is it better? I don't know yet. Ask me in a year. Patricia hung up. Selene sat in the dark penthouse, watching footage of Roman being led away in handcuffs play on loop across every news channel. She'd won, but it didn't feel like winning. About some, both did. The trial took 11 months. 11 months of testimony and evidence and expert witnesses explaining financial crimes to juries who looked glazed over by the complexity. 11 months of Roman's lawyers trying every tactic to delay or dismiss. 11 months of media coverage that turned Selene into both a hero and a villain, depending on who was writing the article. Selene testified for 3 days, laid out everything, every strategy she'd created, every deal she'd structured, every moment of erasure. Roman testified too, tried to paint himself as a victim of a vindictive ex-wife. But the evidence was overwhelming. The documents didn't lie. The former employees didn't lie. The money trail didn't lie. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty. On all counts. Sentencing came 2 months later. 18 years federal prison. Restitution of $243 million. A public acknowledgement that Selene Vey was the architect behind Ashford Global's success. Selene stood on the courthouse steps afterward, microphones in her face, questions coming from every direction. How do you feel? What's next? Do you forgive him? She looked at the cameras, at the world watching, at the moment she'd been building toward for almost 2 years. I don't feel vindicated, she said. I feel tired. And I don't forgive him. But I don't hate him anymore either, because hate requires energy I don't have. What I have now is freedom, and that's enough. She walked away before they could ask anything else. Lucien was waiting at the bottom of the steps. You okay? No, but I will be. What now? Now I figure out who I am when I'm not fighting. They got in the car, drove through the city toward something that felt like an ending. 6 months after the sentencing, Selene stood in the lobby of a building in Brooklyn she'd never seen before. The sign on the wall read, Vey Strategic Group. Her name, her company, her empire. She'd used the restitution money to build it from scratch. A consulting firm that worked exclusively with entrepreneurs who'd been overlooked, stolen from, or erased by larger corporations. Women, minorities, people who couldn't afford elite lawyers but had ideas worth protecting. The office was small, 12 employees, all of them people who'd been where she'd been, who understood what it meant to fight for recognition in a world designed to keep you invisible. Lucien was a silent partner, provided capital and connections but stayed out of operations. He'd meant what he said about equal partnership, about building something that mattered. Ivy worked there too, as a junior analyst, learning, growing, becoming someone who'd learned from her mistakes instead of being destroyed by them. Selene walked through the office, past desks and computers, and people working on cases that would probably never make headlines, but would change individual lives. Past walls covered in photos of clients who'd won, who'd gotten their names back, who'd gotten their work back. She stopped in her office, stood at the window, looked out at Brooklyn stretching toward Manhattan in the distance. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I saw your company. It's good. I'm glad you found something real. Our Roman, texting from prison. Somehow he'd gotten access to a phone, or someone was sending messages for him. Selene stared at the text for a long moment. Then she deleted it without responding. She didn't need his approval anymore, didn't need his acknowledgement, didn't need anything from him. A knock on her door. She turned. Lucian stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this. Thanks. He handed her one, stood next to her at the window. You've built something good here. We've built something good here. Mostly you. Mostly us. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Lucien said, Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't called me that night? If you just walked away? Selene thought about it. About the woman she'd been. About the life she'd had. About the choices that led her here. Yeah, she said. I think about it sometimes. And I don't know if I'd be happier, but I know I wouldn't be free. Is freedom worth what it cost? Selene looked out at the city, at the endless sprawl of buildings and lives and stories intersecting in ways no one could predict. Ask me in 10 years, she said. Lucian smiled. Deal. He left her alone in the office. Selene stood at the window for another few minutes, then she turned back to her desk, to the work waiting, to the cases that needed her attention, to the life she'd built from the wreckage of the life she'd lost. Outside, the city moved on, indifferent, relentless, beautiful in its cruelty. And somewhere in that city, in a federal prison upstate, Roman Ashford was learning what it meant to be invisible, to be forgotten, to be erased. Selene hoped he survived it, not because she forgave him, but because survival was the only revenge that mattered in the end. Not destroying your enemy, but outlasting them. Not making them pay, but making them irrelevant. 2 years after the trial, Selene got an invitation to speak at a business conference, one of those massive events where entrepreneurs and executives gathered to network and pretend they cared about innovation. She almost didn't go. But Lucien convinced her. You have a story people need to hear, he'd said. Not the revenge part, the survival part. So she went, stood backstage in a conference hall that held 3,000 people, listened to her introduction, heard her name echo through speakers, walked onto the stage. The applause was polite, curious. They knew who she was, the woman who'd destroyed Roman Ashford, the woman who'd become a symbol for fighting back. But they didn't know the rest. Selene stood at the podium, looked out at 3,000 faces waiting to hear what she had to say. My name is Selene Vey, she began, and 2 years ago, I didn't exist. She told them the story, not the dramatic version the media loved, but the real version, about being invisible, about watching someone take credit for your work day after day until you started believing you didn't matter, about the choice between staying silent or burning everything down. People ask me if I regret it, she said. If I wish I'd handled it differently. If I wish I'd been more forgiving, more understanding, more willing to compromise. She paused. And the answer is no. Because compromise is what got me erased in the first place. Because forgiveness without accountability is just permission to do it again. The audience was silent, completely silent. But I also want to be honest, Selene continued. Revenge didn't heal me. Destroying Roman didn't make me whole. It just made space for me to start rebuilding, and rebuilding is harder than destroying. It's slower, less dramatic, less satisfying in the moment. She looked out at the faces, saw women nodding, saw men looking uncomfortable, saw recognition in eyes that had lived some version of this story. If you're in a situation where someone more powerful is taking credit for your work, where you're being erased or diminished or made invisible, you have 2 choices. You can fight, or you can leave. Both are valid. Both are hard. But what you can't do is stay and hope it gets better. Because it won't. Power doesn't give itself away. You have to take it. The applause started slow, then built, then became something that felt like thunder. Selene walked off the stage feeling lighter than she had in years. Backstage, Lucien was waiting. That was good. It was true. Sometimes those are the same thing. They left the conference center, got in the car, drove through the city toward home. And as they moved through traffic and lights and the endless rhythm of a city that never stopped, Selene realized something she'd been too busy to notice before. She was happy. Not the uncomplicated happiness of people who'd never been broken, but the hard-earned happiness of someone who'd been shattered and put themselves back together in a new shape. She'd lost her husband, her home, her safety, her certainty. But she'd found herself. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered. 3 years after the trial, on a cold morning in November, Selene got a call from the federal prison where Roman was serving his sentence. "Ms. Vey, this is Warden Phillips. I'm calling about Roman Ashford." Selene's heart stopped. "Is he dead?" "No, but he's requested to speak with you. He's being released on parole next month. Early release for good behavior and cooperation with ongoing financial crime investigations." "Next month?" "Yes. He wanted you to know, and he wanted to ask if you'd be willing to meet with him, once, before he's released." Selene was quiet for a long moment. "Why?" "He didn't say, just that it was important." "I'll think about it." "He needs to know by Friday." Selene hung up, sat in her office staring at the phone. Roman was getting out. After only 3 years, she called Lucy in. "Roman's being released." "When?" "Next month." "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know. He wants to meet with me, before he gets out." "Are you going to?" Selene thought about it, about closure, about the difference between ending a chapter and burning the book. "Yeah," she said, "I think I am." But the prison visiting room looked exactly like prison visiting rooms in movies. Plastic chairs, metal tables, guards standing by walls watching everything. Roman walked in wearing prison khakis that hung loose on a frame that had gotten thinner. His hair was shorter, gray at the temples. He looked older, tired, human. He sat down across from her, didn't smile, didn't reach for her hand. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Why did you want to see me?" Roman took a breath, let it out slow. "Because I'm getting out next month, and I needed to say something before I did, something I should have said 2 years ago. I don't need another apology, Roman. It's not an apology. It's an acknowledgement." He leaned forward. "You were right. About everything. I did steal your work. I did erase you. I did make you invisible, and I did it deliberately because I was too weak to share the spotlight. I know. But you don't know why. Does it matter?" "Maybe not to you, but it matters to me." Roman's voice cracked. "My father told me from the time I was 12 years old that success meant being better than everyone else. That if people knew how much help I needed, they'd see me as weak. So I learned to take credit, to pretend I didn't need anyone, to erase the people who actually made me successful. That doesn't excuse what you did to me." "No, it doesn't, but it explains it. And I needed you to know that it wasn't personal. It wasn't because you weren't good enough. It was because you were too good, and I couldn't handle that." Selene stared at him, at this man she'd loved and hated and destroyed. "What are you going to do when you get out?" she asked. "I don't know. I can't work in finance anymore. My reputation is destroyed. I have no money, no connections, nothing." "Good." Roman smiled, small, sad. "Yeah, good." He paused. "I heard about your company, about what you're doing. And? And I'm glad. You're doing what I should have done. Building something that actually helps people instead of just feeding an ego. It's harder than it looks. Most things worth doing are." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Roman said, "I don't expect forgiveness, and I don't expect you to care what happens to me. But I wanted you to know that being in here, losing everything, it taught me something." "What?" "That the person I was trying to be was never worth becoming, and the person I destroyed to build him up was always worth more than I understood." Selene felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I hope you find a way to rebuild," she said. "Not for me, but for yourself." "I hope so too." The guard called time. Visit over. Roman stood, looked at her one more time. "Goodbye, Selene." "Goodbye, Roman." She watched him walk away, watched the door close, watched him disappear into whatever life was waiting for him beyond these walls. And then she left, walked out of the prison, into the cold November air, into a world that had moved on without him. She got in her car, sat there for a minute, then she called Lucian. How'd it go? He asked. He apologized, or something like it. Do you feel better? No, but I feel done. Good, that's enough. Selene drove back to the city, through highways and bridges and tunnels that connected the past to the future. And when she walked into her office the next morning, when she saw the cases waiting and the people working and the empire she'd built from nothing, she realized something that felt like the end of a very long war. She didn't think about Roman anymore. Didn't wonder what he was doing. Didn't care what happened to him. Didn't feel the need to check if he was suffering enough. He'd become what she'd always wanted him to become. Irrelevant. And she'd become what she'd always been meant to be. Visible, powerful, undeniable. Someone who'd learned that the greatest revenge wasn't destroying your enemies. It was becoming so extraordinary, so successful, so impossible to ignore that history would remember your name and forget theirs completely. And as Selene Vey sat in her office overlooking Brooklyn, surrounded by the life she'd built from the ashes of the one that had been stolen from her, she understood the truth that had taken years to learn. Being broken wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The beginning of becoming someone strong enough to survive. Someone fierce enough to fight back. Someone powerful enough to make sure the world would never overlook her again. And that was worth every sacrifice, every battle, every scar. Because in the end, freedom wasn't about what you destroyed. It was about what you built in the empty space left behind. And Selene Vey had built an empire, not on stolen work or hidden brilliance or someone else's name, but on her own terms, in her own way, with her own name blazing like a brand across everything she touched. And that was the only revenge that ever really mattered.